Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the co-optional podcast, or in this case, truly the Cox-optional podcast. We've opted not. A very British show we have today. We're also missing Dodger, who I believe is in the air somewhere. I don't really keep track anymore at this point, I've got to be honest. So I invited two fine British gentlemen to continue the tradition of bollocks that has been spewed upon this show. First things first, introduce to you the one and only Jim Sterling. Welcome back for your third appearance, I believe.
It's an honor to have my bollocks spew all over your podcast.
It's just what we always wanted, really. It's Christmas in August. And to join us, once again, a return guest. This is only his second time around, which I think, quite frankly, is criminal. After going independent, throwing away the system entirely, and he's now sponging from people on Patreon. His name is Matt Lees, a.k.a. Jam Sponge. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Good to be here.
All right. Well, you know, it's a bit disappointing, I suppose, to get two fine, cynical British gentlemen on the show and then have nothing to complain about because the games industry has been doing very little over the past few months. But I'm sure we can find something.
I'm looking around, hither and thither. There has been very little. I mean, it's the trouble with summer. A lot of games sort of holding themselves back until October, November, and consequently there's a lot less industry bullshit flying around. That
is true. We could talk about how goddamn terrible Sacred 3 is, though. That would be a good start.
We could do that.
Is anyone surprised by that? I don't know. I mean, really, fair enough. Because, I've only ever played Sacred 2, and it was very funny, but it clearly wasn't a good game.
Sacred 2 was one of those types of games to me. Things like, I talk a lot, obviously, about things like Deadly Premonition and Dynasty Warriors to a lesser degree. It had that quality to me.
Yes.
I recognize the Sacred series is not good. It's not a good series, but it's always entertaining. And ever since I started sort of moving away from covering news and doing previews and all this stuff, all the more traditional games media, there's a lot of games I don't follow the development of anymore. And which I find is helpful because I get to go into something fresh and free of hype. Yeah. But some of the downside to that is I see Sacred 3, I think that's brilliant. I get to play Sacred again. Sacred Citadel was more like Sacred Shittadel. Ha, great joke. 2 thumbs up.
Oh, and yes.
Unfortunately, it wasn't what I got. I wanted to be an Inquisitor again, play some really hammy, camping it up sort of evildoer guy riding around on a big fuck-off spider. There are no big fuck-off spiders.
There's no mounts.
The spiders have fucked off.
Yeah, no mounts in that game at all. And I think the thing about the Sacred universe is, I think you're absolutely right in saying it's the Deadly Premonition of style of so bad it's good, at least to some degree. Mm-hmm. It benefits from its own cheese, and I think that kind of thing can work very well in a fantasy environment for fairly obvious reasons, because the whole, premise of it is silly. But it only really works if you throw it into a decent game, and Sacred 3 is really anything but that, to the point where Sacred Citadel, I would say, is actually a better game, and ironically enough, being a 2D brawler has more loot than Sacred 3 does, for some reason.
Well, what do you think's happened then? Does this feel like a game that's just been pushed out too early? I haven't really followed it, to be honest.
It felt almost like they were trying to bridge the gap between Sacred 2 and Sacred Citadel.
Actually, exactly what it said in the press, not the press release, but the information they sent with my review copy. Mm-hmm. They were trying to emphasize, look, we're going more down the Sacred Citadel route here. I'm like, oh, you are? I hated Sacred Citadel because you could beat the game with one attack.
You might as well tell us you're going to bridge the gap between a cream cake and a shit. Why would you do that? Why did they... I don't think anybody really liked Sacred Citadel. I thought Sacred Citadel was okay. It was all right. It wasn't good, but it was a brawler in a world where there are tons of better brawlers. But why would you want to bring that back? Nobody was saying, please give us more Sacred Citadel. Nobody was saying... throw Sacred 2 in the bin. I don't want that. I want more of this. No one said that, and yet they seem to deliver it anyway. Truly something no one wanted. And yeah, as you say, the brawler had more loot. There's one set of armor.
You made an isometric game with no fucking loot in it.
One set of armor per character that levels up when the game decides.
Yes.
no leveling up happens, no customization happens without the game drip feeding it to you and saying you can have this now.
Yeah.
You get a ton of these weapon spirits you can lock to your character, and
they're
over
boring.
20 hours, one of them leveled up once.
Yeah,
and when the
I've
game
never had
and
it
it wasn't even one I was equipping. The game just decided, fuck you.
It is your time now.
Yeah.
You are ready. You may now become useful.
Yeah, and I'm like, you can only equip 2 basic magic attacks, 2 special attacks per character at any given time, and they've all got their own separate moments when they level up. So if you, say, have Poison Cloud on, that's not really one, but like something like that, Poison Cloud on, and you hit like level 15 and it levels up, and you go, brilliant, I can move that skill tree forward 1 dot and get like 10% extra damage on it. Hooray, customization. And it's like, next level up, level 30. Fuck you. Fuck you and your Poison Cloud. Shove it up your ass. And then once you find the things that work for you, there's no point doing anything else. So you are stuck on this linear path with the game just... like some nobleman on a horse, and you're like some peasant, and it's got a bag of shiny gameplay coins, and it's just throwing them at you whenever it wants. You're like, dance for your gameplay. No, we're keeping the rest for us. I'm taking you to the tavern. The metaphor falls apart there.
Yeah, as much as I wasn't keen on like the vanilla Diablo 3 until actually now it's a lot better, but I did love the way that it was constantly just being like, it didn't ever give you a chance to get bored of anything. It's like, you've been using that for 5 minutes now. Better give you something else.
It's like, hey, you want a rune? Here, take a rune.
Yeah.
You want to change that completely? That skill you just forgot? Here's a rune that makes it interesting. Let's do that. Let's do that. You want another weapon? Here's some more legendaries. You're just drowning in legendary items. And I think the worst thing about that is, as Jim mentioned, you get weapons at preset points throughout the game, but the weapons start at level 1, i.e. fucking useless. So you end up getting, look at this brand new sword. It does about half the damage of my current one. You will never get an upgrade in that game. I think that maybe is the linchpin of what makes it absolutely fail in terms of even pretending to be some kind of action RPG. In action RPGs, you get upgrades. Yeah, upgrade loot drops. In Sacred, you get downgrades.
It sounds spectacularly bad.
Would you like another sword? See me again in about 3 hours.
3 hours once you get enough levels to get enough little blips on there. The weapon spirits are really boring as well. The first one you get actually gave me a bit of hope for the game. So you get the Battle Mage, who is like apparently a character from Sacred. He's a womanizing idiot. He makes a lot of really stupid, crude, like borderline sexist jokes. And it's like, okay, he does something kind of interesting because there's a proc chance of chain lightning on him, and he has some vulnerability, and each has a pro and a con. So I think, okay, so are you going to let me equip multiple guys like this? Are there going to be a bunch of good ones? I actually got 4 weapon spirit drops on one boss fight. I don't know why that was. I looked through them, it's like, this one lets you heal 10% extra health to your party members, but you heal 10% less. I was like... You what? And then I went through the others, and they're all these little 10% fucking upgrades.
Yeah,
that is dull as shit. Yeah. What are you doing?
I found 2 interesting ones throughout the whole thing. Well, one was the dragon, where it's like your normal attacks randomly spawn a shield on you that protects you from all damage. Yeah. And that was a kind of interesting one. At the risk of something, I can't remember what it was. And the vampire was interesting, but made the game like ridiculously easy because health orbs give you 50% less health. Oh dear, but you're getting 0.5% health back every time you hit in a game where you can hit like 1,000 guys in 2 seconds.
Well, yeah, because that's all it is. It's left clicking over and over and over again. And I made the comparison to 99 Nights, which was a game that came out a long time ago on the 360, which I like. I admit I like more than Dynasty Warriors. I really do. I think just generally think it's better. Yeah, I think the focus on only having a couple of characters meant that the movesets were a lot wider, a lot bigger, and you're also hitting a lot on guys at once. So I actually really enjoyed at least the original. Yeah,
How
pretty
many
much.
men can I hit at once? Yeah, done. So
yeah, spot on.
That's the thing I'm most excited about with this generation of consoles, and I really hope they don't do the exact bait and switch they've done every single generation for as long as I can remember, of all of these tech demos where it's like, look, there's like 400 people coming over that hill. We're going to be playing games with 400 people coming over hills, and then they come out and it's just like, well, actually, we've made 8 men, but they look really pretty.
Yeah.
And you're lucky to get the fucking hill.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well,
it's more of a It's a knoll. It's sort of a...
The
Yeah.
view distance
We've
is
got-
just too shallow.
We've
You
got
just
a
get
knoll
fog.
with half a bit of grass on it. 8 men. Their shoes don't look very good.
But they're really sexy men. Like, look at them.
The polygon count on the pecs is just absolutely next gen.
Through the roof.
I mean, we did have to knock the frame rate down a bit. It's about
Yeah,
24, but that gives you that true cinematic feel.
24
So-
frames per second. There are no women in this game. Couldn't afford them.
Well, the technology just isn't there yet for that.
It's just
Look at
not
that.
there.
Look at that fucking knoll, though. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. It's a work of art.
And we've made a horse that shits itself at random when it wants to, because that's a sensible allocation of resources.
I thought that Molyneux stuff was NDA'd until...
Shh.
Sorry.
Don't do it. We'll get fired. That sounds like the kind of thing that have advertised with the emotion engine. You remember back when they were talking about that with the PlayStation? Do the emotion engine. It'll make everything real. I can just imagine that being part of the lovely little press junket saying, yeah, this horse shits itself, but only when it wants to. That's the power of the emotion engine.
Well, they've got that with the new FIFA, haven't they? They've got emotions.
Well, a horse
like
that
built
shits
in.
itself. Wow.
So, like, you know,
that's
all
the
of
first FIFA game I've been interested in a while.
The trouble is, the emotion engine turned out to be just the DVD player that David Cage watches all his films on.
I think
follow that up.
if we're to get back to Sacred for a second, I think the reason why, I mean, you're asking, where did they fucking go wrong? Well, they went wrong by having the fact that the original developers of Sacred Acheron don't exist anymore, and the license was given to Keen Games. Now, if you want to look at what Keen Games did, you will be in, well, you won't really be in for a treat because you're going to have very difficulty actually finding it. The website says they've done all of these games like, oh, they did Anno. No, they didn't. They ported Anno to the Wii. And they ported Secret Files Tunguska to the Wii. Actual original games they've made, very, very hard to find that. I think it's mostly just film tie-ins, like GeForce the Guinea Pig, Jamie Oliver's What's Cooking, so they did that.
Brilliant.
That's
Fantastic.
If you can hit more than 8 men in Jamie Oliver's extreme cooking, I'm all over it.
With just a giant sausage. I mean,
Yeah, giant sausage.
Pocket, mate. Pocket. Try your hand at some delicious real cooking with the interactive...
Check this out, Jules.
It's not even a
Jules.
game,
I've
though.
killed 12 men, Jules. Jules is great. She does
The
some of
blood
the killing
ain't coming off,
sometimes.
Jules.
Well,
does
Jules
the
is not a
killing as
playable
well.
character because they didn't have the budget to put a female character into Jamie Oliver's What's Cooking, but...
Well, you never see Jamie Oliver's wife, Jules. He just occasionally mentions that she sometimes makes fish finger sandwiches. I'm pretty sure she's a fictional character, personally.
It's entirely possible.
But, you know...
What I want for a truly next-gen Jamie Oliver game is you're Jamie Oliver, you're cooking up some sausages, you're having a lovely time, press X to pucker, you're pressing X, he's going pucker, 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 I'm cooking up some lovely sausages, like that, having a whale of a time. And then the camera just pans to the left and there's a framed photograph of a pig, and it just... everything goes black and white. He looks all sad for a bit and it just says, are you happy with yourself? And then it turns out that it's the spiritual successor to Spec Ops: The Line.
It's a good point, I can't knock that. He does use a lot of pork in his recipes.
Really makes you think.
I just need to cry for a minute now.
Oh, my. So I think it's probably got something to do with that. But they're hiring guys, open positions for AAA projects. Oh dear. If they are, hang on a minute. It said open positions for AAA projects. The one position they have is gameplay and UI programmer. In brackets, mobile. Like, all right. Yeah. Let's see what they come up with there. It's a disaster, really, and. I wouldn't be so bothered by it if it was just a bad video game, but it's a bad video game in a franchise that some people actually do like. I mean, the original Sacred sold over 2 million copies, if you can believe that. And it came at a time when there was no Diablo clones other than Titan Quest, so that's probably got something to do with it.
It came out at the perfect time. Like, people were hungry for that stuff, even
Absolutely.
if they didn't... I didn't know I was, but I played it. I was like, no, I've been missing this.
Missing this, yeah.
So
It had some cool features. It had horses, it had a lot of different classes and stuff like that. It had a pretty good open world. But this is a $50 release with day one DLC that locks the most interesting character behind a pre-order paywall. The battle maze you can't play unless you pre-ordered, or I assume paid some amount of money for. They had a weird release debacle as well. They they claimed the embargo was on, I think it was the 1st, and they released the game 8 hours before the press embargo, which is a huge dick move.
Cheeky bastards.
It's pretty ridiculous.
That sneaky stuff is exactly the sort of behaviour that has reviewers going, right, and rolling
all
out
right
their
then,
sleeves.
let's get into it.
The thing about it was just the biggest crime it committed to me was just it was boring.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the worst thing you can do. Like, even if you're shit, you can still be remarkable in some way. You can still do something, and sometimes that can be a good thing. You know, you can do something interesting and still be bad and get some sort of credit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sacred 2 is hilarious from what I played. I played it for probably about 8 hours or so. And I just remember getting to a point where I realised that I'd properly fenced myself in by my decision to buy a monkey instead of a sword. Because they were both about the same price. They were both
10
really
out of
expensive.
10.
And I was like, this monkey costs the same amount as the sword, and this is all of my money. And I was like, yeah, but it must do something really good. And it didn't.
It didn't do anything.
Only if it opened up a mini game where you come back and so I'd like to return this monkey. I thought this monkey would be as useful as a sword, and it turns out I've had no use for this monkey. He doesn't do anything. He just sits there wanking. Can I have my money back? And he's like, no, you buy it. It's yours. There's wear and tear on that monkey now. That's a second-hand monkey. I can't sell a second-hand monkey. It's like, you sold me this monkey at a markup, mate.
It was a ridiculously expensive monkey. And I did get in touch with Watchdog about it, but they... Yeah, it's a touchy subject. But just don't buy a monkey, buy a sword. It's not.
Or at the very least, just learn the lesson of the monkey buyer's dilemma. It's one of the more famous ones. When a game gives you an opportunity to do something that stupid, I always embrace it with the idea that it's going to somehow know that I've done that. And I mean, I remember like in 50 Cent Blood in the Sand, I just always end up spending all of my money on better insults rather than better guns. Yeah.
And it was like, the game kind of knew that you were going to do that, and it didn't really seem to punish you for it. It didn't suddenly go, the game's too hard now because you haven't bought any guns. You spent all that money on better swear words.
Yeah. Well, if we learned anything from Steam, then caveat emptor applies to everything. So it's actually your fault that you bought the monkey and that the monkey didn't do anything. And we shouldn't really be blaming the vendor for selling that monkey in the first place. They should have the freedom to do that, and the people that own the vendor should be exempt from all responsibility.
Absolutely.
That seems totally reasonable. You know, we didn't abolish that concept in the 1900s in Britain or anything. But
in fact, you should actually be apologizing to the vendor
that is true.
for buying it and having a bad experience, which reflects poorly on them.
I think as British men, we can all agree that if we just let the markets regulate themselves,
it all gets sorted out.
Everything will be
absolutely.
Sorted out. This is why we've got such wonderful broadband internet here in the United States, is because the companies have all the control, which means they can make all of the good decisions for us. Because I've never had a good idea. And that's why I'm with Comcast, is because I've never had a good fucking idea in my life. And I'd like to thank Comcast for making all my decisions for me. Thank you.
Yeah,
and if you've got any monkeys going, I'll buy them.
The market decided that all we wanted was Time Warner Cable. So, we let the market decide, and this is what we're left with. And the market is obviously right 100% of the time. It can't be wrong. I mean, the market isn't a person. It doesn't have emotions. It's cold and calculating and numerical. You can't argue with numbers.
The cry for Sacred 3 to become a lootless button masher was deafening, and we got it. Yeah. The market decided again. Yes.
Absolutely. The thing I remember about Sacred 2 the most was the fact that they got German power metal band Blind Guardian to write the theme song for it, and then put them in the game in an in-game rock concert with orcs in it. And that,
not only that, but NPCs would just sing the song as well.
Just for no reason.
Sacred.
It was the best.
Brilliant.
I gotta say, actually, within this arena of sort of vaguely strange, is it made by a European studio?
Originally it was,
Sacred,
Acheron was German, I think. Yeah, Acheron was German.
You get these fascinating RPGs made by German kind of studios, and I remember going out to Berlin to have a conversation with the guys who make the Demonicon games. Demonicon.
Oh, the Dark Eye stuff.
Yeah. Demonicon, the Dark Eye. Yeah. The Dark Eye, yeah. So basically, I was interviewing these guys for the Dark Eye, and I think unfortunately it was back when I was writing for Official Xbox magazine, and I recorded a video interview with them, and in the end the audio was so screwed up on it that we just couldn't use it at all, which was a real shame. But they previewed us the start of this game, which is now out, Demonicon, and it's basically within the first half an hour, it's basically the main characters are brother and sister, and within the first half hour of the game, there's a bit where for basically no reason, they just get off with each other.
Yeah, I watched the intro to that game, and I was like, this seems really a bit incestuous. And then you get in the game, it's like, it is. Like,
it is
what?
Incestuous.
And the name of that game again was
Demonicon, the Dark Eye. It's I think it's really crap because when it was coming out, it was one of these things where we were looking at it and we're like, when's it coming out? And they're like, in about 5 months. And it's just like, fuck, you're not gonna get this into any kind of shape in that time. But I remember asking
a third-person kind of action
developer
RPG.
and being like, so this whole incest thing, isn't that a bit, are you not worried that like when the game comes out there might be a bit of, do you not think that might be a bit of a controversial thing to just have in the game? And they're like, oh no, it's fine because like in Germany people are much more relaxed about these things. And I was just
they're much more relaxed about incest.
Do you want to rephrase that answer maybe? Like it was just unbelievable.
I fucked my sister this morning before coming in. It's relaxing, refreshing, helps me do my job a lot better.
It was just insane. It was like everyone in the room just being like, this game's just openly got incest in it. As no thing. Like, yeah.
Fair play to them. Well, let's be a bit more progressive, please.
I think it's interesting, and I do like the kind of oddities that we get now. It feels like in some ways that's kind of replaced a lot of what we used to have coming from Japan, these sort of strange oddities. We still get strange, odd games from Japan, sure, but I feel like a lot of them now are almost... I've become desensitized to Japan odd because Japan odd is often...
bullshit fan service.
Yeah, and also it's almost like in the way that it's become now, like when I do play crazy Japanese games, it's more of a comfort thing because it's like I know what they're going to be like. And it's like, oh, you. Whereas I still like the fact that Eastern European games can still just surprise me because they're just batshit in a way that I'm just still not used to.
Russia in particular has released some very, very silly things indeed. Incidentally, the Germans in the chat are heartily disagreeing that they're okay with incest.
No, that's the thing. Is I was 100% sure when I was interviewing this guy that he wasn't trying to say that in Germany incest
they're very relaxed
okay.
about incest.
But it was this thing of me being like, dude, this is on camera. Like, do you want to not say that? Do you want to say something else? Yeah, lost in translation.
Just a bit, apparently, yeah.
Well, if anything, I think Game of Thrones brought incest into the mainstream and was really groundbreaking in the incest fantasy genre. So I really think I can finally get my game Brother Sister Bounty Bounce on the market at last.
I love the way that Ireland have been advertising, like, come to Ireland because Game of Thrones is all filmed over there, so they use the same font and say, this is where kings are made and stuff. I am kind of surprised they haven't just said, all right, you can fuck your sister. Just as a joke advert, I would book tickets to Ireland purely on the back of that joke because I'd just be like, someone's going to lose their job for that, but I've got a lot of time for it.
Yeah, so Second 3's bollocks, basically. It's not worth your time at all. What else have we been playing this week, then? Let's, Jim, what have you been up to? What have you been playing?
Okay, what can I actually talk about?
Yeah,
well, I just spent almost 2 hours playing Redneck Racers for no good reason.
Why?
Because I panicked, because I had a live stream before I did this for The Escapist, and was like, what can I do that is remarkable in some dire, macabre way? And picked that one at random and had the worst time of my life. So that wasn't good. What else have I been doing? I've been playing some more Dynasty Warriors because why not? Sacred 3, of course. I've been playing Risen 3 as well, but I can't really talk about that because of embargoes and stuff, which is annoying.
Oh, I actually have code for that, yeah. They haven't sent me code for that.
Played Black Bay Asylum. Also did that on the live stream for a bit. Black Bay Asylum got voted for on Greenlight and is on Steam now for everybody's buying pleasure.
Okay.
It's kind of a top-down puzzle game. Bears a lot of visual similarity and stylistic similarity to Loaded and Reloaded, those old PS1 top-down shooters, and looks and plays about as shitty as they do these days.
They were pretty bad.
Yeah, it's set in a home for the criminally insane. You play a guy called Doug who wears a diaper because he's insane, he kills people, talks to a teddy bear.
It's very edgy.
Yeah, very edgy indeed. You kill a guy with a lawnmower, like you just mash it on his head to get his meat cleaver to solve a puzzle. But the real highlight of Black Bay Asylum are the racist and sexist jokes that are in there, which are just delightful. Including such things as the protagonist, Doug, our hero, looking at a vacuum cleaner and saying, "I'm not cleaning, I'm white and speak English."
Wow.
And looking at a dishwasher or like dirty dishes and saying, "I'm not doing the dishes." No, hold on, I've got to get the delivery of this just right. "I'm a man."
Who even comes out with this shite?
I don't think I can really count those as racist or sexist jokes because I was just waiting for the punchline that never came.
It reminds me of that.
You're not finding it as funny as I did then.
That
like
sounds
saying,
like.
"Hi guys, Mexicans."
Well, that's exactly what happens. That is the joke that is repeatedly throughout the entire of Adam Sandler's Jack and Jill. You heard about this film?
I have heard terrible things about it, but I wasn't sure it was on the level of controversy or just complete shite.
Oh no! Well, it's just that he made it to like it's basically almost just dodgy as hell. It's just like it clearly was a way of him giving loads of his mates money and nothing else. There's a whole dissection of how much money this cost, and you look at it. It looks like it's filmed on like terrible little handy cams, but it's incredible, like dodgy, like borderline. It's like, was this legal? But it's really racist. It has loads of jokes that are literally just like, "I'm Mexican, so I steal things. Only joking." And it's like, what is this? Like,
wow. It was the first film
incredible.
to win every category in the 30-second Golden Raspberry Awards, breaking the record held by Battlefield Earth. It is considered by some to be one of the worst films of all time, with a 3% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
I can't even recommend watching it as a joke. We watched it as a joke so we could make a podcast about it, and it was genuinely one of the most painful things I've ever done in my life. It wasn't even like so bad it's good. It was just
Al
like
Pacino's in it. What has he done with himself?
Oh, it's the worst thing Al Pacino has ever done. But it has scenes in it that have no relevance to the plot, purely because they've clearly been paid for product placement. Like, it literally starts off with him going, "Oh, I've got a real headache. Oh, my stomach feels bad as well." And somebody just gets a tray of Pepto-Bismol and says, "Try some of this, it's great." And he goes, "Oh, thanks. Oh, that's better." And it's like, what is this? there's a bit where...
I took the Pepto-Bismol and it was better.
there's a bit where one of the characters is like in a swimming pool with a jet ski. Like just for a second, just because then somebody's gone, "Right, yeah, that jet ski's ours now because we've fulfilled our contract." And then there's a bit where they're on a cruise. All the characters go on a cruise, and it's purely just like, this is just Adam Sandler and all of his mates having a free cruise. It's if you honestly, I think it was Red Letter Media did a whole thing on it. It's stunning that you just think, how did they get away with this? Like, how did the IRS not lock them up? But anyway, yeah.
This game, oh my god! If you want to lose all faith in humanity right now, it grossed $150 million at the box office after costing $80 million to make.
That genuinely is funny.
And the lighting in it, honestly, the lighting in this film is like the lighting I've got currently. It looks like something that is made by students. It's like daytime television. It's just like, where did they spend? Honestly, as somebody who produces video, I cannot tell where they spent any money other than giving all of the actors millions. It's quite something, yeah.
Now that's amusing. The Blu-ray edition has 17 more minutes of that film in it.
Holy shit.
They actually cut footage. That was the best stuff that they put in. There was more that was even worse than that.
I think the funniest thing about the movie...
bit where the black person eats a chicken. Like, I'm really not feeling that. How about 2 of them sold? Because they do that. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, it has a bit with a Mexican family, and they're all eating chilies, and like it's just like, what is? But the whole premise of the film is that he's trying to get Al Pacino, who is playing Al Pacino, to be in an advert about Dunkin' Donuts, and that's the whole premise of the film. Got to get Al Pacino in this advert about Dunkin' Donuts. And Al Pacino's like, "No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing an advert about Dunkin' Donuts. Why would Al Pacino do that?" And at the end, he convinces him to do it, and then almost in like life imitating art, it then has at the end of the film the Dunkin' Donuts advert with
an actual commercial,
yeah. Where like they've just made it for the film, but now you are actually watching a commercial for Dunkin' Donuts, and it's just like, I can't tell if it's genius or the most evil thing that's ever been created in the world. Probably both, but it's stunning. Yeah.
I mean, you've got to, I guess, appreciate the courage involved in creating something that maniacally bad. I think that requires a certain level of intelligence to actually go that far.
It's one of the things you could really only do if you do have an audience who are complete idiots. Like, I mean, I'm not even saying Adam Sandler has never made good things. He's made some good things in his career at points, but now, like, the people who go and lap this stuff up, like, genuine morons. It's just stunning.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Not sure how we got onto that one. Let's try and get away from that as soon as possible. So,
but anyway, Black Bay Asylum's kind of like that.
Terrible games, and terrible games, and this terrible movie. Did you play anything that wasn't awful, I suppose?
Oh, shit, now you've got me. I can't even remember what I did 5 minutes ago, let alone what I've been playing. They've all been bad. Pineview Drive was bad. Recruits was bad. Son of Nor was bad. I'm just going through my fucking YouTube channel at the moment. They're all bad. Mount Your Friends I played. That was okay.
That is a great game.
Mount Your Friends, yeah.
It does have revolutionary dong physics.
That's what I came for.
It is brilliant. It's really hard to actually convince people how brilliant that game is, because you go, this game's amazing, and everyone goes, yeah, it's got swinging helicoptering dicks in it. Very good. And you're like, no. It is actually a really, really good game. I mean, you have to play it like with other people in the same room. But some of the guys from a UK website called Midnight Resistance put on a London event once, and it was just a tournament, basically, where everyone just turned up and got drunk and played it. And it's an incredible spectator sport when you've got, like, a room full of people watching, and that moment where somebody fails to climb and fall slowly, it's the sort of game where if you've got a group full of people, just people roaring with laughter and having an incredibly intense time. It's brilliant.
Doing well on Twitch at the moment. I'm constantly finding it in the top 10 when certain popular streamers are playing it, and people do seem to enjoy watching it a lot. I actually did watch a bit of it. I think it was Cry who was playing it, and it was good.
It's the future of esports, for sure.
Obviously, yeah.
Dota, fuck off.
Yeah. After the cues I had last night, I'll agree with you on that one. But, yeah, I think it's unfortunate. I think the visuals actually kind of just put me off the game completely, because it looks like a lot of fun. And I'm just like, these visuals were not designed for me. You know, it's just something I definitely can't appreciate about it for some reason.
It's definitely a party game as well. Yes, I think you probably can play it online, but it's just... I think
you need to be on Skype at least.
It's so immediately easy to work out how you're supposed to play it, and then if you get it wrong, it's really funny. And so, yeah, it ticks all of the boxes for something you can just hand to people who don't know what they're doing, and people immediately have a really good time with it, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. So there's that.
I played that Last of Us Remastered.
Haven't got around to playing that version yet. I do have a code for it. I should get around to playing it, because...
It does look pretty.
Well, my original experience with Last of Us was horrible, because it was just like, wow, this is running at about 25 FPS. I can't control this shit. It just wasn't enjoyable. So I was happy to hear that it came back at 60. And then I read this review on usgamer.net that said, we recommend locking it to 30 for a more cinematic feel. It's just like, you're a fucking journalist! Don't spread this shit! What is wrong with you?
Utter horse shit. I don't know how, I don't know how you can go from 60 to 30 and say, yeah, that's good for me. And I say this as someone who, I can play a game at 30. I can play a game at 30, provided I've not just come fresh out of 60.
Exactly.
Like, going from...
I'm actually one of these people. I'm sorry. I'm one of these monsters. Please.
Have you not eyes in your face?
I don't know. Like I used to be when I was younger. I remember I used to sit on play games on the PC, and my PC looked like games looked much better on that. And then I would turn around and watch my brother playing on the N64 and go, "Oh, that looks so ugly, horrible." But then I just sit and play the N64, and within a couple of minutes, I just forgot, and I was just enjoying it. And I don't know, I do...
I think a lot of that stuff did run at 60 back in the day. Oddly enough, more 60 FPS games back in the PlayStation 1 and 2 era than there ever is now. I remember playing a lot of Saturn games, and a lot of that stuff ran at 60, especially once you got the little expansion RAM card, because they had these perfect arcade ports of things like X-Men versus Street Fighter and Street Fighter Alpha 2 and all sorts of things like that. And it was just fantastic. And go back and play those, and it's totally fine. Like, it's fantastic. But if I go and play something on PlayStation 3 that's running about 25, 30, I just don't want to play it. It feels bad, and it's not even a case of it just being, oh, well, it looks pretty. Is that the current console gamer argument for some reason is, well, graphics don't matter. It's like, yeah, you're right. I'll happily play something that looks like absolute arse as long as it plays well. But it doesn't play well because it's running at 30, which means there's input lag and everything controls slower, and it just doesn't feel as tight as it does at 60.
Maybe my brain's just like a bit shit then. I don't know.
But I don't know. I mean, do you game usually on console these days? Is it mostly console stuff?
It's mostly on PC at the moment, but I'm actually starting to move back onto console now because I find capturing games whilst playing them is just a pain in the arse. And actually, that's a major thing. For me, it's about consistency. Like when I've been playing a lot of Divinity: Original Sin, and I'm sort of putting together a big video about that for tomorrow. But it's kind of annoying in the fact that my PC kind of consistently probably runs it, probably not at 60 frames all the time, but it's like close to that. And it's high enough that even any drop is not noticeable.
Is a big deal, actually. Like I definitely won't argue with that. If you fluctuate below 60 a lot, it is probably more annoying than just playing at a constant 30.
Well, it's like whenever I'm capturing, it then jumps down to being like usually at 30 frames, but then sometimes going down to 26. And just the fact that because it's using the processing power, that drives me mental. Anything below 30 that isn't static can fuck right off. I'm completely behind you on that one. But at the same time, I found myself when I was playing Dark Souls on PC again with the S-Fix and all that kind of stuff to make it nice and smooth, my PC wasn't quite good enough to run it at 60 frames per second consistently, right? So occasionally it would drop down.
Yeah.
And that drove me mental enough that I was actually happier playing it up-resed a bit more
at 30. Yeah.
And just having that consistency. But I don't know, for me, like I'd rather have the smoothness. That's actually why I'm really happy with my PS4 so far, because it seems like they've done a really good job of actually having most things that have come out on it running really consistently, which is really impressive. But
yeah, I mean, I think it was when I first bought Infamous before they patched it. It started off in the main area. It's like, oh great, it's at 60, fantastic. I'm gonna really enjoy this. And then I started to notice dips. And then once I got to the city, I really started to notice dips. And I'm not just talking 60 to 59, I'm talking like 60 to below 30 at times. And it was all over the fucking shop. And that is very, very noticeable. I think anyone that claims that you can't notice the difference when that drop actually happens in-game is talking out of their arse. There's no way you couldn't tell, even just in the feel of it. And I think it's something that NVIDIA's G-Sync monitors are looking to actually fix, very much so. I remember playing I went to a G-Sync demo and I played with these G-Sync monitors, and they varied the frame rate between about 60 and 40. Much, much harder to tell the difference. A lot harder, because it's syncing the frame rate of your monitor, the refresh rate, directly to the game's frame rate, which means you're not getting that tearing. You're getting much, much less noticeable blur and input lag and everything like that. Yeah, it's good. I mean, eventually it will be standard for monitors because they're doing this open format now for the next version of DisplayPort that does just that too. So
the thing I will say about frame dropping and stuff like that, and I think it's really difficult because I think nowadays there are a lot of people who really can't deal with that, and so they just can't play a game if it's not tightly coded enough to run really smoothly all the time. But I think maybe I've taught myself not to do that, because over the years there've been so many games that haven't run very well, but have been really great games that if I hadn't stuck with them, I would have just completely missed out on those games or those stories. And often I think there's a tendency for games, and it's very rare I find that you get games that are incredibly perfectly well produced and smooth and run really neatly that are also really exciting and ambitious. And there are so many games. I mean, Dark Souls is a prime example of that. I remember when it came out on PC.
2 in the history of ever. Dark Souls 1 and 2.
No, but there are loads of games. Deadly Premonition was a mess as well. But that's a different kettle of fish. But no, there have been lots of games that have just been a bit crap in terms of how they run. But sometimes I kind of like the ambition of developers just being because there's something very pragmatic about Western game dev now, being the game's coming out at this point, we need to just cut all of these things out of it. We can't make them properly, so they just can't be in the game.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And I
pleasing
kind
the
of like-
shareholders comes before pleasing the customers is the problem.
Absolutely.
So long as some guy who's never even heard of a video game is happy, who cares if the people actually buying the thing even raises a smile? You know, fuck
Yeah.
you, pre-order now for your skin pack, and we'll see you next year when we tell you this one was shit, but we really like this one and you'll love it, so pre-order that one as well, please.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, the reason I play on a high-end PC is so I don't have to really worry about those drops. If your game's coded like shit, I can probably just overpower it anyway, unless it's Watch Dogs, because that really is coded like shit, and you know, it won't even stay at 60 on 2 Titans, so, you know, there's that. But I think that ultimately the best thing that could be added to console games would be an option. I would happily play games on console at 720p with your silly little controller if I had the option to run at 60.
There have been games
I'll sacrifice graphics for it, no problem.
I'd be happier if Ubisoft just didn't make PC games. Just drop the pretense.
Well, it's
Just
even
stop
worse now,
pretending.
isn't it? It's like, what is it? They said recently that they have outsourced all of their future PC stuff to their Kiev studio or something like that. Was it Kiev?
No, I think they outsourced it to a chicken Kiev. It sits there on a
yes.
plate, and they shove the code in front of it and say, "Make us a PC game," and I
Now
will
listen,
put it on the
Jim.
PC.
Listen, like
and we'll...
I honestly don't think there are enough games coded by delicious garlic butter. So I think we should be embracing this.
I'll get
and the
in touch with my
breadcrumbs.
I'll get in touch with my mate Jamie Oliver, and he'll sort us out.
Yep. If you want to know why it's bad, by the way, that they have sent it over to the Kiev studio, this is a list of the games that they ported to Windows. Tom Clancy's Hawks ran like absolute shit. From Dust didn't control properly with a mouse. Driver San Francisco, if I recall correctly, was laden down with online DRM for a while, but it did run fine after that. Assassin's Creed Revelation, Ghost Recon Future Soldier, that ran like shit on release. Assassin's Creed 3, that ran like shit on release. Black Flag-ish, it was okay-ish. Wasn't brilliant, but they had to patch that a few times. And now they're doing Far Cry 4 and Assassin's Creed Unity for PC. So it's pretty hard to believe that these ports are going to be good, because
Well, I've
they
been
have
saying
had a long
for
history of
years.
them not being good.
I've been saying for years that if you're a PC gamer, you need to just pretend Ubisoft doesn't exist. You'll be happier for it, because so rarely do they actually bring something out that fucking works. And in the meantime, they treat you like shit, because they talk to you like you're a fucking idiot. Like, where for years they were saying, we're putting DRM in our games because our DRM is a success. It works, so we're going to keep it. And then when they need us on their side, one of their executives comes out and says, you know that DRM, it doesn't work. DRM's never stopped piracy. Love us now. Oh, please like us now, just in time to fucking download a Uplay account. Which in itself is DRM and doesn't work on your single-player games when their servers don't work, because they tell us we've got to be online 24 hours and they can't keep their own fucking
stuff
tools in
online.
line.
Yep. Well, I mean, I think if you pre-order an Ubisoft game for PC right now, you're an idiot. I mean, just look at the history of them. You want to apply caveat emptor? All right, cool. You have a lot of information available to you. You can, the buyer can very much beware. The buyer bloody well should beware, because the last game they released, I think, that ran really well on PC wasn't even Far Cry Blood Dragon, because that didn't run well on launch either. I remember the intro sequence dropping down to about 40 and shit like that. Eventually they got it sorted. Far Cry 3, did that run well? Probably Far Cry 3. But even that had a lot of problems on a lot of different systems as well. If you were to go back, if you go back even further, Ghost Recon Online, the free-to-play game, which is PC only, that ran all right. Bloody well better. It's PC only. How do you fuck that up? Rayman Legends, I suppose, but again, it's a 2D game. How do you fuck that up?
It's true.
I'm surprised they didn't find a way.
Well,
Rayman Legends and Rayman Origins are probably two of my favorite games of recent years.
Fantastic.
Incredible.
I mean,
But
it's
yeah, I
not
mean,
like
just
Ubisoft
generally, like,
makes bad games all the time.
Yeah, well, they're just always bad at launch. I think it's not even just the PC. I think Ubisoft have really nailed at the moment. And it is funny, and it's one of the reasons I was actually quite happy not to be covering E3 in a traditional way this year, is it seems this hilarious cycle of every year like this is one of the many things, but new Ubisoft games come out and everyone's like, oh, it's a bit broken, it's not as good at launch, and then they're just so good at hype. They're just so good at getting people so excited, and that's why Watch Dogs just sold so well, because it was all pre-orders. I mean, Assassin's Creed Unity will be exactly the same. They are incredible at marketing.
They've hired a cadre of inveterate liars who are very good at lying. And, I mean, let's call it what it is. Like, I'm done even using the word hype these days. It's lies. They're really good at lying. They bring out, their first ever trailer for Watch Dogs, which was a big lie. It was a lie. And I
am fascinated. I am fascinated. Yeah.
Sorry.
I am fascinated by this stuff at the moment, and it's really difficult because it is like it instantly makes you want to be just super cynical whenever you see any new game that looks cool. You're like, but I am fascinated by the methods behind this stuff, because it's just like, obviously back in the day of print, you used to have developers touching up screenshots. So it'd be like, here's your 8 screenshots for a new game.
Do. It's all over Steam.
Yeah, but now it's like they've actually managed to just create these things that are gameplay, and yet you sort of think, is it? I can't wait for in a few years for more details to come out about how they do these things and how they puff them up and how they seemingly blend. I don't even think that's the thing. I don't even think it's just a case of them having super PCs and super amazing builds. It's almost like, I don't know. It's like the whole thing after Aliens Colonial Marines, and after just seeing that, how they clearly just had an entirely fabricated piece of gameplay used to then sell a different product. It's just the whole system now of just what it means when it comes up being, this is a gameplay reveal. It's like, is it? I don't know. Like, is it real?
I left the Ubisoft press conference not knowing if I actually saw any video games. I saw a lot of pretty films. I saw a lot of nice short films. But I saw even the stuff that looked like gameplay was in some way had some element of deception to it. Like that, what was it, the Tom Clancy, was it Rainbow Six that they had the hostage situation and shit?
Yeah, Rainbow Six Siege.
And that seems to be their new thing with The Division as well. They've done this, and Rainbow Six, where they have the voice chat.
The fake
done
voice
by
chat.
Actors.
Yeah.
So it
Jolly
sounds
good,
like,
chaps. Yeah, I'll help you in a second.
So it sounds like it might actually be the characters talking amongst themselves, and you can't tell, and it makes it sound so much more exciting. And it's a lie! That's all it is! Let's call it what it is! This is why I don't, like Matt, I'm very pleased I don't do E3 anymore, because, again, after the Colonial Marines, I'd have to walk around the show floor just pointing at all the booths, just going, liar! Liar! Liar!
Well,
like, just constantly until they
E3 has been that for years. It's hardly the first time. If you go back, you think about the Killzone 2 controversy, where they just entirely fabricated the whole thing. There's just like, this is gameplay. Actually, no, it wasn't any of that. They actually pre-rendered the whole fucking thing. And, I think it comes to the point, obviously, I don't approve of any of this shit, and frankly, they shouldn't be doing it, but it is maybe about time we as consumers stop taking E3 seriously in any way. It's like, please stop getting excited about things that get shown at E3. How many times do you have to be let down to stop being excited about this stuff?
That's it. It's self-perpetuating bullshit, and that's kind of what's so annoying. Is it's like when people sit and get incredibly furious that a new game that's just come out isn't as good as people are expecting it to, it's like, well, why did you even, it's like people ever refuse to take any blame for it. I mean, I think there's a case of being, like, obviously in the case of, publishers are being misleading, but at the same time, how many times do you have to be disappointed by something that you're so angry before you start to go, maybe I shouldn't get... Watch Dogs is a great example. When everyone was like, Watch Dogs is a bit shit, it's like, come on, guys. It's had a bit shit written all over it for about 8 months. Like, you look at the signs, they're like, oh, look, you can pop up bollards. 6 months later, you can pop up bollards. It's like, they've got nothing. Like, they had nothing. It was so obvious that they played all of their hand day one, and then you go around and say, what else you got? And it's like, they had nothing. And when people were surprised that game was just okay, it's like, come on. It was like... Come on.
Nice to see, and it takes a very long time, but I do have faith that the market always rebels eventually, even if it's too late. I mean, we saw this when Activision one year released 10 Guitar Hero games in a single year, and I think that was the last year that Guitar Hero was a thing, because eventually the market was like, no, I've had enough. It does happen, trust erodes, but it does take a long time, and I think companies know that, and it's like, well, we've only got a limited amount of time to do this. Let's be as bad as possible as long as we can, and then have a change of heart later. And it would be nice if the consumer were a bit more savvy about these things. It can be a bit difficult because the truth is often so buried under a bunch of fucking lies these days. But I do always try never to blame the customer myself. Caveat emptor is not a thing I particularly subscribe to.
It's not a thing in the UK. Quite legally, it's not a thing in the UK. So
if only for the simple fact that even if I do think that you have to be at least a little bit deluded to trust anything Ubisoft says, focusing on the delusion is giving them a free pass. And I don't even want to waste a second blaming a customer when I could use that precious second to add on to the hours and days and years that I'm calling Ubisoft liars.
Well, yeah, but you are still talking about a company that's asking for money a year in advance and then taking the money and then not giving the product that was expected, which is a sin. There's no doubt about that. Certainly should be focused on there. And if you want to apply a little bit more blame, we can apply it to anyone, frankly, that calls themselves games coverage or journalists that says things like, believe the hype.
Oh.
Could we not ever do that?
It makes my skin crawl. Like, I don't want
to vaguely sort of trust the hype.
Yeah, I don't want to be, unprofessional and have a go at anyone in particular, but Jesus Christ, let's not be complicit in this shit. Like,
that's the thing is, I think it's not about blaming customers for having bought something that they shouldn't have done because they were misled. I just think that there is a real degree of people who the hype is intoxicating, and I think there is a large group of people, and maybe I'm preaching to the wrong choir here, but I think there's a large group of people who actually enjoy the process of getting carried away by this beautiful shiny hype wave, just so they then can crash into something with anger when it's not quite right.
Oh, that's right.
And I just think, like, I don't know, like I think there's professional cynicism, and keeping myself is so important because of the nature of the industry. But at the same time, I just sort of think some of the people, obviously, I'm exposed to on the internet who let themselves become so angry, let their whole lives become this whirlwind of anger. I sort of think, dude, like, you should play some games. They're really fun.
I've said it before, and I've said it 1,000 times. There is no pride and no benefit to being a fan of anything. Because all it does is emotionally invests you in something that is out to get your money. That's the only thing it's out to do. And that means that when it eventually does disappoint you, you have one of two options. You dig yourself further into this sort of Stockholm Syndrome cognitive dissonance mindset, whereby you ignore all the faults and you convince yourself that it's actually fine. Or you get the biggest possible case of buyer's remorse, which usually results in people sending death threats to the families of the developers that edited the stats on this one gun I liked once. And I don't see none of these outcomes are good for anybody. Why? No. Why would you put yourself in such a vulnerable position in the first place?
And that's the thing. It kind of feels like if we're allowing that the anger that comes out of the consequence of that to reach that level, right? Then that unfortunately just explains and clarifies the fact that the hype that they want is working. Because it's like they're it's hard to describe. But if both ends of the polar scale need to exist for that to happen, and it's kind of like, I don't know, if people could just be a bit more cynical and angry constantly, they wouldn't have to explode so violently at the other end of it.
They don't even have to be cynical and angry. They could just be skeptical. Skepticism is healthy in all walks of life. That I think is what we need more of.
The signs are there as well. Like, there are always people going, I don't know about this. I don't know about this. But yeah, it's intoxicating to get really, really excited about stuff. And it is a shame that I feel like I'm at the age now where I don't do that, because I always go, it might be a bit shit.
Even though I am, rather decently known for being very angry and being very disappointed and as cynical as the next British games media type thing. Even I nowadays there are still little pockets of things that get me sort of all giddy and stuff, and I have to keep that in check. You know, I could spend the next 2 hours of this show talking about Hyrule Warriors and just jizzing up the walls, but I try not to do it, and I do try and always still maintain that could be a bit shit because.
The best part of being a Dynasty Warriors fan is that all the games are a bit shit, so you know exactly what you're getting into.
I still remember after Bioshock Infinite came out, and I remember I was excited about that after launch, and after launch it kind of disappointed me. But I remember standing on the tube and seeing a quote, being like, "This is and I was just like, fuck off, that quote, like fuck off, like no, it's not that good, it's not that good. Fuck off." And then I realised it was from the publication I used to write for. And I was like, hang on a minute.
That's why you used to write for
I'd written it. And it was a piece of a quote that I'd written in a preview when I think I said, shaping, this could well be one of 2013's most anticipated titles. And I think it got shortened down to one of 2013's most anticipated titles. And it's like, well, it was in 2012. And it was just like, it was just so frustrating to being like, something I said is being used to sell a game I don't think is very good.
Yeah.
Well, I always
I'm
found
pretty
it
sure
funny
there's
when
actually laws about that.
It was my publication okayed the quote, so I didn't want
All right, well, it's their fault then, idiots.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. But
I think the funniest thing that ever happened to me was when I reviewed Vanquish and famously didn't like it and gave it a very low score, which I'm not ashamed of. And there are still copies of Vanquish with bloody brilliant Destructoid on the box, which was from a preview I did where I did say something about it.
Vanquish is great.
Yeah, it is just like, but
well,
that
it's
isn't what
no
I
Dynasty
think.
Warriors.
No! You're right, it's got more than 2 buttons.
And more than 4 hours of gameplay.
Oh my. I can tell the rest of the show is going to be fantastic. It would be a good time to take a short break. Come back, well, actually, yes, let's do that. No, it's going to let you down, as we all just so often do. But we will come back after the break, and we'll talk about more games we've been playing, including one I actually like. So, there's a surprise for you. You're watching the Co-Optional Podcast. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Co-Optional Podcast. You just heard the wonderful sounds, if you were listening live, to the Transistor soundtrack, which is very, very good indeed. Mr. Darren Korb's The Spine, followed by a little bit of the soundtrack from Advance Wars Days of Ruin, which was goddamn brilliant. And we could certainly use a few more Advance Wars games as far as I'm concerned. That stuff was absolutely fantastic. So I played a game that I actually liked. In fact, I played several. One wasn't even on a computer, if you can believe it. Incredible.
Do tell.
Was it Kiss Chase? I like that one. Not very good at it, though.
I have a box here. You know what's in this box? Lots of these. Lots of these.
Oh, that's very good.
Yes.
I haven't played that, but my colleagues bloody love it.
Yeah, it was in fact entirely your colleague's fault that I bought this fucking thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I got back earlier from Quinn's house, and he's got that on his mantelpiece, and he's just so proud of it. It's
a nice model.
It's lovely.
Yeah, it was on Amazon for 50% off. I wasn't thinking about it because this is usually about $90 or something like that. And I thought, well, it's not the sort of thing you usually use in a game. It's more of it's a set piece kind of for specific missions. So that, well, maybe it's not worth it. And then it was like $45. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's if anything, it can just go on the shelf, which it was doing before the stand. I'm just going to stand it up there. That's quite phallic. Okay. But that X-Wing, I actually played the introductory match with the missus. She plays Imperials, I play Rebels. We just did the basic scenario match, which is Luke Skywalker in an X-Wing versus 2 TIE fighters. Yep. And
classic.
Yeah, you don't get any these special items or anything like that, which actually made the game a bit duller than it actually is, because it was a lot of, so we're fumbling around with the rules and things like that. But we eventually figured everything out. And that's an elegant system. Not only is it an elegant system, but the game's an actual affordable miniatures game. Speaking as someone that just got a bunch of stuff for Warhammer again, because I wanted to start putting Warhammer together, like, well, the cost of this, I think it was a Mauler Fiend, even with the discount, was about $65. Or I could buy an entire squadron of stuff for X-Wing that's like a full 100 points, which is like the standard format. Like, oh, cool, I have an army now, and it cost me $65. All right, cool. That seems reasonable. So,
yeah, I mean, the Warhammer collectible thing has been just, it's kind of been taking the piss for a long time. And it's really nice to see,
over the years, they've been putting less and less in the box and charging more and more and changing their materials to cheaper materials and charging more as they do it. Yeah, because because they're liars. And we're actually trying to fight the urge at the moment because I've got a group of gamers out here, and my friend Flannel's he looks at me and says, like, we can't get into Warhammer.
Don't.
In that way that says we should get into Warhammer, and I say no, we really shouldn't get into Warhammer in a way that says we should.
Yeah, get into something else because
I mean, I totally agree.
You probably can't notice it, but like this stuff comes pre-painted, right? And you'd expect it to be a bit shitty. It's not. Like, right up there, the fucking detail on that. Like, on the fucking solar panels, like the individual grids, all of it, they deliberately made all the ships look really, like, battered and old and stuff like that. Yeah. The detail is fucking phenomenal, and that model is, like, $12, fully assembled, fully painted, with all of the upgrade cards. And that's the cool thing about them, is you're not just buying one model, you're buying a model which has got like 4 different pilots, all of which have different stats and abilities. You're buying a model that has a bunch of upgrade cards, so I can equip this with all manner of different shit, and it'll play differently every time. So you buy a few of these, and suddenly you have customization. Even if you only have like 4 ships, you have like 30 different compositions and combinations you can put them together in and actually use them. It's affordable. You play it on a 3-foot by 3-foot table. You don't need a giant fucking terrain thing. You just throw down some asteroids and you're done. It's good. You know, it's cool. It's a good game.
Analog gaming is really cool at the moment. There's a lot of really exciting stuff, and it's kind of weird that you're not seeing video games copying it in lots of the ideas that I see thrown up in like kind of analog games lately. I'm just like, why haven't video games ripped this off? This is a really cool idea.
I think you already answered the question when you said it was unique and interesting.
Yeah. But especially with what I like with the Star Wars figurines is you can take them off the stands as well. Because we did, the guys, I wasn't involved with it, but the other guys at Shut Up and Sit Down did, when they did the review of it, they were like, oh, we kind of want to have at the start of the review, have like a little dogfight with the green screen. And it was just like, we did it with like strings and all of the ships are wobbling around in space, and it's so wonderfully shite.
You can even like extend the heights if you want one to fly higher than the rest. You can just put another little plastic stick on it. Yeah, I mean that's the B-wing again. The model quality is fantastic.
Really cool stuff.
It's cheap. It's fairly easy to learn. I like the way the movement system in that game works is actually genius. So you've got these. They're all kind of downstairs. Maybe I can. Hang on a minute. I've got a spare set here. So I got a second core set just because I wanted some more TIE fighters and stuff. But this is kind of all the cardboard that comes with it. These little dials right here. That you put them together, and under these dials you set a maneuver, but it's secret, so no one gets to see it. Yeah. So you set the maneuvers in advance for each of your ships, and then you reveal them in order of lowest pilot skill to highest. So there's a bit of mind games, a bit of poker going on there, because you've got you've got these little maneuver dials, and the other guy doesn't know what you're going to do, but he thinks he does, so he's going to maneuver around what he thinks you're going to do. And there's certain limitations, like there's some extreme maneuvers, like the Koyagran turn, which is you go forward really fast and then you flip 180 degrees, which is obviously like a big fuck you to just get right in somebody's face. But of course, that's a very stressful maneuver. So if you do that, you're limited to what you can do the turn after that. So it's like, is he going to take that risk? Does he want to take an easier maneuver? If the pilot's stressed, he maybe has to take a green maneuver, which is much easier, so it's easier to predict, and it's often slower. It's like a shallower turn. And they use these lovely little templates for maneuvers that are just these pieces of cardboard. It's like, this is like a bank to the left 3 or whatever. And you slot it into the front of the base of these things. which you can maybe see on camera. It's like there's these tiny little things right here, this guide. You just slot it in there, and you move it to the end of the template. That's it. You don't have to measure or anything. It's a really nice system. It even lets you, like, fly in formation because it naturally keeps everything together, which is awesome. And then, of course, once you start fighting, it's a furball. You're going fucking everywhere. It's, it's a great system. It's the system from a game called Wings of War, which was an old World War I dogfighting game. And they also sold the system to WizKids to make Star Trek Attack Wing, which is a very similar game, but it has really shitty models because they took the HeroClix models and just slapped them onto a base.
Yeah, I have a couple of those because we went to a game store down by the coast and this guy was just throwing free stuff at us. And he gave me a couple of the Star Trek ones. But I'm more interested hearing the miniatures for the Star Wars one better.
They're to scale as well. The ones in Star Trek aren't. So it's like, here's a bird of prey that's as large as a Galaxy-class Enterprise D. And I'm like, sorry, I'm too much of a Star Trek fucking nerd to accept that. That's not going to be okay. And they look shite. And whereas, like, you know, that's the Millennium Falcon. There's a lot of burn detail on that. It's nicely detailed. It's a good ship. It comes with Chewbacca and Han Solo and all your favorites. It's
natural.
Yeah, it's good. It is a good game, and I would highly recommend it.
I kind of wonder why it's happened, but it's just odd after years of doing so. Like, the kind of collectible game market has suddenly, like, largely, not completely, but largely just stopped taking the piss out of people.
Yes.
It's like Netrunner is a big thing, and it's Netrunner is one of the reasons I can't really get into Hearthstone.
I want to play it. I'm still kind of into Hearthstone, but Netrunner, the model for Netrunner is really cool. It's called a living card game. So instead of the bullshit of a CCG where it's like, here's a random pack that probably has shit you already own, it's like, here are 4 copies of every card in this expansion. It's $15, $20. Go.
Yeah, that makes it feel like an actual strategic thing.
Yeah.
Rather than, luck and having more money than the other guy. And that's why I was always wary about things, like you say, other CCGs, Magic the Gathering and that sort of thing, like where there's no strategy because there is an objectively best deck. And you buy the best deck and then you play with the best deck. And that, I don't like that. I like the idea that if I'm playing a game, I'm playing a game. I'm not having the game play me, which is what a lot of these things end up being. That said, seeing how excited you are for the Star Wars game there, I have to wonder whether somewhere, right at this very moment, there is another live podcast of seasoned miniature gamers just like, and they told us that there would be like 15 burn details on this Millennium Falcon and there are only 10. Those fucking liars. They told us to believe the hype.
Oh, shit. Here's since we're talking about Fantasy Flight stuff, who basically is like one of my favorite. XCOM, the game, the board game, just got announced. I just saw it on the website.
You can't see this, but I have covered all of the walls in this room with jizz. I know that Jim said earlier we shouldn't do this, but
that's actually why I'm wearing these glasses. It's because I can pick the. It's horrible. It's like a collage behind you.
We're familiar with brass, so there's a chance
it with
might
an
come
iPad
through the monitor.
It's in real time. This shit is in real time. I love that they're doing this.
Yeah.
There was a Kickstarter I backed a while ago from the guys that made the Shadowrun game, and it's called Golem Arcana. And the idea was that it would have it has this little, it's almost like a magic wand thing that reads data off the models and calculates all the shit for you. XCOM is used with a tablet, and there's a free companion app that comes with it, and it calculates a lot of shit for you, and it looks like it's in real time. And you get missions and stuff that you have to play along the way. This sounds fan-fucking-tastic.
Basically, for those of you who know anything about board games, it seems to have a lot in common with Pandemic. And Pandemic is a really great game where it's like
hard
a
as shit.
Game. It's fucking hard.
Yeah.
But it's a great game to play with good friends because basically the idea is that the world is dying of viruses and you've got to work out the logistics of getting around the world, saving the world. And basically, it's a really hard game, but you just sit and talk to each other and go, what are we going to do? And it gets so intense of being like, you've got to go to Delhi and find a cure quickly. And it makes you feel like genuine movie badasses.
The only problem with Pandemic, though, is at least in the experience I had, it was a single-player game with everyone else moving the cards.
Yes.
No. It's interesting you say that because one of the expansions I actually reviewed recently on Shut Up and Sit Down is called On the Brink. And what that does is it allows one of the players to be a bioterrorist, which means if you're like me and you know the game and you're aware that you're going to end up backseat driving everyone else, it means you can allow 3 new players to just discover the puzzle for themselves whilst you sit there with your own agenda trying to cause them more grief.
That's more interesting.
I played the base game and I didn't like it. Like, it was a lot of moving cubes, which is like a lot of Euro games are kind of like that. And I didn't think the theme was maybe strong enough. It sounded good in theory, but with that expansion, I think that I'd probably play that again.
I'm a big fan of co-op games with like 1 or 2 players that are actually antagonists.
You want to play Battlestar Galactica then?
I'm a big fan of Battlestar Galactica.
Okay.
I am legendarily the best Cylon player you will ever have because I have a terrible guilt complex where if I'm telling the truth, I get very red-faced and nervous about it, very self-conscious about it. I'm terrible as a human, but for some reason I get into this zone of sociopathy as a Cylon, and I had another guy, like, everyone else believed he was the Cylon the whole time, and I kept going until, like, they were almost at Earth. And then I turned on them and just had this entire stockpile of ships that just descended. It was glorious.
Full nuclear.
We've
actually got a big Let's Play of us playing Avalon, Resistance Avalon, which is again another game about lying that we did ages ago.
It's a very simple game, that one, actually.
Such a simple game, but so good. And I almost feel bad that video exists because it has on record like me just doing some of the worst / best lying I've ever done in my life. It's properly nasty Machiavellian stuff where I just twist the entire room. It's like, yeah, it's not pleasant, but it's good.
The asymmetrical social aspects that they're starting to add into some of these games are really intriguing. They're some of the best experiences I've personally ever had. That's why Battlestar is the game that I like the most. It was years ago that I was playing just with a group when I was back in England, a group of guys that I knew from university and from our old WoW radio days. They'd come over for 3 days. We'd have some drinks. We'd play Battlestar and things like Chaos in the Old World, which is still a very fun game, and things like Shadows over Camelot and all sorts of stuff like that. And there is definitely an experience there that video games haven't quite caught up to in many ways. There is a resurgence of this stuff. And I think there's a few reasons for it, certainly. One, a lot of these games you can, if you get the right sets, play free on Vassal with your friends, which, is kind of technically piracy, but most of the people that play these already own the games anyway. So, it's like, I just want to play with someone that's across the world or whatever. Things like Dominion has an online client, which a lot of people criticize, but I played the Dominion client, and I quite like it. It's pretty good for the most part. It could be better, but it does the job.
I think there's a tendency for, like, a lot of us grew up playing stuff like, 4-player split-screen games, and now, like, online stuff has kind of replaced that. And online stuff is great, but we've lost a lot of what it used to be like. And actually now, when you have these great games where you can actually have a good reason to have people in the same room, you just have a blast. But it's funny with the XCOM thing, because this XCOM board game is going to have the real-time element. I like the idea of being like, guys, we've got to make a decision, and being like, no, seriously, you've got 40 seconds. It hopefully will be a bit like Walking Dead, the board game, in a weird way of being like, we don't have time, what are we going to do? We're going to do this or that.
If you want to play something stressful, try Space Alert. Oh, God.
Oh, yeah, that is horrible.
That game is not... it came with it. For those who don't know, for Space Alert, it's you're the crew of a starship going into very dangerous territory, and you're given a mission, but the timer is all done on a CD. So you put the CD in, and then it starts playing, and it doesn't stop. And you've got to frantically try and keep your ship from exploding while all sorts of shit is coming your way. It is the most stressful fucking game in the universe.
Well, actually, the most stressful game I've ever played anywhere in any form was we recently did a thing where we went to a thing and played like a real-life version of XCOM. And it was a full-day thing, and we made a mini documentary about it. But I was the president of Japan, and I was Prime Minister of Japan, and it was just so stressful. You got the looks for it,
I'll give you that.
it was just insane. It was just like, aliens are coming, what do we do? What do we do? And it just becoming this, having like the Tsar of Russia coming over and being like, what the hell's going on? And it's being like, I don't know what's going on. Why are you sending stuff into our country? It's like, we thought there were aliens there. They're not any aliens there. I'm really sorry. And it just, I mean, it's one of those things where actually it's a real shame, because after we made the video, like they're called mega games, and they're like, basically you have 100 people all playing in a big social game. and they've just completely sold out for years now off the back of it, and it's really annoying because I want to play more of them. But yeah,
sound cool. Yeah, there's that. We're putting together like a bunch of sort of one-on-one games. I'm trying to get my wife into more of them. So we played a bit of X-Wing. We've got Warhammer Disc Wars, which is also pretty good. Which comes with a lot of sheets like this, and it's playing Warhammer but with cardboard discs, which are a shitload cheaper. So for about $20, you can play a game of Warhammer Fantasy with Warhammer Fantasy units, and the movement system for that is fucking ingenious as well. You flip the discs end over end. So it's like, this goes 3 flips, 1, 2, 3. And if it overlaps with another unit, it gets into melee combat, and then they fight. It's good. So there's all sorts of cool things you can do. And it is surprisingly affordable. There's definitely some board games that cost a shitload. Like, you get Descent and all the expansions, that's going to be running you hundreds of dollars. But that is also a game that has hundreds of miniatures and all sorts of things like that in the box. But then there's a lot of cheap stuff. Like, you mentioned Resistance earlier. That's, what, $10 for Resistance? Because it's basically just a set of cards and rules to allow you to play the game.
There's a card game we reviewed recently. I can't remember what it's called, but it was such a simple card game, but it was a 2-player game, and it was so good. It was the sort of thing where we played it like 4 times in a row to review it, and then the other guys came through and said, "Oh, you played enough to review it?" And we're like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Well, should we go and play something else then?" We're like, "No, we're going to play one more."
Yeah.
It's just like, it was really simple, but really elegant and really like tight. That sort of wonderful game where you find yourself just staring at somebody and they look up at you as if they want to kill you, and you just grin at them and just be like, "Yeah." It's a good time.
There's a 40k card game coming out in the same format, the LCG format. It's called Conquest. I'm very much looking forward to that, because that's a very strong theme, and you don't have to spend $60 for a unit.
That'd be nice. I want to get back into the universe stuff.
I love the universe.
If I can avoid the actual miniature bit. We actually tried to play Dark Heresy, the pen and paper RPG.
We did a series on that on
Trouble
JP's
is,
channel.
Only sort of our main DM guy, Flannel, and I really know much about the universe. So we had a guy who's playing a fucking psyker. He's this 70-year-old man with a metal jaw and everything. And obviously, if you know the universe, you know that psychers are kind of feared and tightly controlled. And if they step out of line, they're going to get their heads blasted off. He tripped some anti-psyker alarm, and because everyone in our gaming group wants to be the hotshot rebel who doesn't give a fuck, he's like, "Well, they're telling you to step back." He's like, "Well, I ain't going to step back." And I'm like, "You're a fucking psyker."
We had a similar problem.
Do it.
We had a DJ Wheat was playing our psyker. He was in a fucking ecclesiarchy coven, like this kind of confide. He said, "You have any books about the warp?" I was like, you what, mate? We had to explain him out of this situation. It's like, you can't do that. That is the main problem with Dark Heresy, which I do hope to eventually get back into doing. I had to unfortunately stop doing the series as I was very
even just like
busy
more
with other
one-off,
things, but
like more one-off, because I do love Warhammer, the Warhammer universe. I've just been so distant from it for such a long time because it has been so built on either kind of vaguely crap games or just rinsing your wallet, which I've never really had a wallet, so I've never been able to be rinsed.
Get into Warhammer, yeah.
But I remember, like, it pisses me off so much that it's stuff like they did a re-release of Space Hulk, and I just missed it. It just sold out immediately. It's like, oh, come on, guys! Like, I'd love it if
I
they
recently
did
got a
more
copy, and
kind
it cost. Someone actually gifted it to me, which was very, very generous. A close friend of ours did that, and it cost him hundreds of dollars.
Yeah,
like, what?
If you've got a demand for this, why not just make it? I don't know. It kind of annoys me when it's like
it's Games Workshop. And when it comes to their games lately, they've given their license to fucking anybody for video games, and they're all terrible, all of them.
Oh yeah. That last one they did, the fucking tried to be Plants vs Zombies, but with
Storm of Vengeance, yeah.
Storm of Vengeance.
Since then, there's been Warhammer Carnage, which is on mobile devices, which is garbage. It's a side-scrolling shooter, which is horrible. There's a Warhammer. They're doing chess. They're doing fucking chess. Regicide. Warhammer 40,000 Regicide. It's just chess. That's
a good idea. They should call it Battle Chess.
Yeah, I'm sure they get away with that. And there's like 2 card games coming out, virtual card games, and a whole bunch of other shit that nobody asked for. There's a really bad sort of pseudo RTS tower defense thing that's coming out too that looks just terrible.
I just don't know. That universe is so ripe for excellent video games. Excellent video, and they won't fucking do them. Yeah, I mean, obviously we had Dawn of War and everything, and
Space Marine was pretty good.
So many genres as well. You know, it could span all of them. Space Marine was very good, and the fact it didn't sell very well was a tragedy. And I've even got a soft spot. It was a bad game, but I got a soft spot for Fire Warrior, the first-person shooter they did. God, I want to say 2007, but somewhere back there.
On that one.
It was a PS2, yeah. Sean Pertwee is the bad guy. It was an awesome game. It had Burt Kwok in it, and that was fun in a bad way. You know, as we were talking earlier about that kind of stuff. You could have another good first-person shooter in that universe, you know, you versus fucking Tyranids and stuff. You can have third-person action games. You can have more strategy games. Like, it applies to so many genres. You could do a fucking, I mean, you know, Dark Heresy has demonstrated you can do it. You could have Telltale that use that license to make one of their adventure games.
Yeah, give Telltale the Eisenhorn license and shit goes
And what do we get instead? Plants versus fucking Zombies with a guy on a space bicycle.
Well, there is one thing that might not suck. Slytherin, the guys who basically make nothing but hex-based war games, have the license to do Warhammer 40k Armageddon, which looks very similar to the old Final Liberation Epic 40k game, which is there are apparently Titans in it, so that's great. And the screenshots are all basically just hex-based strategy. Like, cool. That will probably work, I imagine. That I'll probably play that. It is for iPad, but it's also coming for PC. So.
Although, you know, any hex-based strategy games or square-based, grid-based strategy games, I find that, as we were talking earlier, are infinitely cursed by the fact they're not Advance Wars. And the amount of games I've played since playing the original Advance Wars where I've just been like, oh, this is going to be great. It'll be a bit like Advance Wars. And after about 4 hours, I'm like, but it's not Advance Wars, Matt, and it'll never be Advance Wars.
It's, you know, Advance Wars would be great for 40k. Just imagine that. You get your squads together, and the way they run in, and like they have the animation of them fighting each other, that'd be fucking great. Just watching them just gut each other with chain blades. Fantastic. Let's go.
Done.
Let's go. But yeah, unfortunately, that's probably not going to happen. The beta test apparently for Warhammer 40k Armageddon, it's open to sign up. So I want in on that. That I will play, and I will tell them if they fuck their lore up. That's how I'm going to be. I'll be a complete grognard in that respect. There you go. The other good game that I actually played, which wasn't a board game, although it could very well have been, was 80 Days on iPad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've heard about this.
Yeah, that is really fucking good. And I hope they bring it to PC as well, because it'll work just fine on PC. It's basically a choose-your-own adventure set in a steampunk version of Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 Days. And you play Phileas Fogg's valet, who is trying to make sure he doesn't kind of fuck up, and he's facilitating for the journey. And it's just, not only, it's aesthetically glorious, it's gorgeous. Just down to tiny little details, like the way that, because there's a lot of reading in the game, obviously it's basically a choose-your-own adventure book, essentially. But the way that it brings the text in after you pick the option is just, it's so, they must have put a lot of effort into just how the text moves in that game. Everything about it. Just the graphics in general, these really nice flat-shaded, very, very lovely images. And the writing's great too. There's a lot of options, and it seems like it bears multiple playthroughs. The missus beat it recently and then just beat it again and is playing it for a third time. Because you can go different routes around the world. You can completely miss most of the content on the way. Because you just decide to go this way and visit this city, or an event happens which shuts off this route and you have to take an alternate route. And you have to manage your money and acquire stuff to trade to afford your adventure. It's just awesome. Absolutely fantastic. So
Sounds very cool.
Yeah.
I've been playing, this week I've been playing, I didn't realize it was early access when I bought it, which is kind of annoying because I was like, oh, I've done it again.
I hate it when that happens. Like, that game looks amazing. Oh, it's in alpha.
I had a good recommendation from a friend. He just went, buy this game. And he's like, I've got very few friends. I just go, okay, and then just throw money at something. And to be fair, it is actually, it's one of those games that's in a good enough state that I'm just like, yeah, this is fine. I'm actually going to have a lot of fun with this, regardless of how finished it is. But it's called Crypt of the Necrodancer.
There is a video on my wife's channel. They sent me the dance pads for that game.
Oh, really?
They've done the same with me.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm dyspraxic, so I could barely put one foot in front of another. So it's 4 minutes of me just almost falling over and getting my feet tangled up in knots and getting frustrated.
Yeah,
it may be the
imagine.
worst.
But playing it with your fingers
yes,
it's quite,
I would strongly
it's quite
suggest
pleasurable.
that.
Yeah. I'm not. I don't think I've got any coordination issues, but I don't know how people do the dance pad thing. And it's not just because I'm a husky gentleman, although that doesn't help. And I know people obviously want to see me do a video of Crypto the Necrodancer because of the obvious hilarity that will ensue. But I don't get, like, where do your feet go?
Yeah,
My feet aren't that big. Like, you do 1 foot on the left, and then you have to do one on the bottom, and then one on the right, and one on the... Like, I don't know where the foot that I'm not currently moving goes. I can't make my feet do the things. It doesn't make sense to me. And then I have to jump up and down, and then I think I'm going to crack it.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I don't think you're going to crack those. Those things are rock solid, like really good pads. So I don't think you're going to crack. I've been told the way to do it is you leave both of your feet on and you just kind of lift the back of your foot, and just sort of tap that way. But you leave both feet on an arrow at any given time, and then you move the one that you need to, and then you leave it there. I guess I don't know.
But this is the thing is. To me, like, I've not played a huge amount of dancing games, but usually the fun of those is they do require you to just like mix up the rhythm a bit more and do things that are like.
Someone in the chat is saying you go in the middle. Sorry,
no, you can't. No, that's
bullshit.
It's bullshit. I tried it. My feet don't even fit in the middle. I have size 11 shoes. I can't fit in the middle.
I can't do the middle. Stop it.
I can't get my fucking meaty gammon feet in the middle of that fucking thing.
Full-on revolution going on here. I like it.
I can't do it. It's the most frustrating experience I've ever had.
I can see why they've sent them out with dance pads as a promo to get, and it's obviously worked because both of you guys are more than aware of it.
Because we're idiots and put it on there, yeah.
Well, no, I mean, that's a fun thing. But it does feel like it's not really that suited to dance pads because it is like, it's not that complicated. It's like bum, 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 bum. And it's like in dance, you don't Dance Revolution. It doesn't expect you to just go left, 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 left 4 times like forever. But it really works just in the vein of it, like using the fact that the whole point of like it being a rhythm game is it means like you can't stop. You need to keep thinking. And in most dungeon roguelikes, it's very much like, oh shit, I'm in a really bad situation here. You just sit back, like Dungeons of Dreadmore, I'm a big fan of. You just sit back and go, what do I do? What do I do? And in this, it's just like, nope.
Nope, you can't do it. Get moving,
keep moving. It penalises you for like even taking a split-second break about what do I do in this room. Playing on a dance mat would be hell, because I'm shit at it, and I'm using keypads.
I have to stop every time I step. Like, I mean...
Yeah, it wouldn't work. There's a dance pad mode. There's a dance pad mode in the game, which makes it easier. It gives it apparently a bit more life, and it starts with a broadsword, so you can hit 3 targets at once. Just to make it playable. I lost the first level over and over and over again. It was a fucking disaster.
I mean, that's it. I mean, I don't think it would work that... I mean, apart from being briefly funny, I think it's definitely best played on a keyboard. Yeah.
And even on the keyboard... I'm going to do a video of it. I risk a heart attack just getting out of my bed in the morning.
You should check it out, but check it out with a keyboard, because with a keyboard, it's just a really good game.
I've tried it with the keyboard, yeah, it's a lot more fun.
It's hard. And it's the thing of you being like, this room's full of monsters, oh god. But you don't want to lose your multiplier, because you've got your multiplier for...
Yeah.
And so you end up just like getting killed because you just do stupid things, because it's like every half second you've got to press a button, and so it's like, which one am I?
And they're all doing the same thing. All the enemies are doing the same thing, and they all have a different way of being tackled safely and trying to jump. It's like spinning plates, basically.
Yeah, but it does that really nice Rogue Legacy thing of being like, okay, you got killed again, but you can spend this currency to like unlock something that will make it easier next time. And I've only played it for about an hour, but it's just like this is cool. And also, it's got pretty good music. It's the sort of thing.
The music is phenomenal. It's by it's by Danny B, if I recall correctly, isn't it? The composer for Meat Boy and various other things.
And Jimquisition, actually.
Oh, there you go.
He does the background. He did the background music, the tune which he called Jim's Dick 2. That's the name of the background tune in my show.
Come and think of it does sound like a Danny B piece of work. Is
it lost somewhere? Is this like the kind of...
I have no idea. I mean, I'm guessing that was the second test of something, but
this will be uncovered.
I tell everyone it's Jim's Dick 2 because
in 12 years' time, like Apple will proudly announce that they are releasing the full Jim's Dick compilation. They have every version have been uncovered for the first time.
On an exclusive iDick.
Jim's dick is always in the background.
Now you can have Jim's dick 1 and 2 with you everywhere you go.
Yep, you could have Jim's dick, and you can have some fingers, if you like.
Chocolate fingers and Jim's dick. That's a night in, isn't it?
These are not...
This week's episode is sponsored by Dick and Fingers. That would be a fantastic product for Cadbury's. Cadbury's Dick and Fingers.
They'll get there. At some point, they'll realise they need more money, and that'll be...
If they're desperate enough, then Dick and Fingers in association with the Co-optional Podcast.
Kraft Foods is really just one step away from a porn studio at this point, you know.
Yeah, I've got a bed behind me, so I'm ready. Anyway.
Good. You just need a bit of lighting in there, and you can go at it.
Yeah, I do need some lighting, yeah.
I'm looking at your cover. It almost looks like your duvet is transparent and it's just floating there. It's a bit weird.
It is. I think that's... it's because I just made a bed of cushions. It's basically, it's not used as a bed. It's just there is a bed in this room, and the cost of removing a bed from the room is... And also the pragmatics of it. Like, you sort of think, like... knowing Sod's Law, if I get rid of this bed, then we'll just have to move out immediately. And they'll be like, "Where's the bed?" I'll be like, "What? Well, I don't." Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's not dodgy. It's fine.
Said the E3 representative.
Yeah,
indeed.
I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, God, E3 stuff. There's some mad stories. I heard a story about somebody, a representative of a games publisher I won't mention because it probably would get me into legal trouble, even repeating the story. But apparently it was like somebody, a spokeslady was just in a room at E3 a couple of years ago, and she just turned around. There was just a guy wanking, right? There's just a guy in the room.
I've heard the same story.
And then the thing is, it turned out that this guy who just walked into the room and just started wanking over this woman was actually a representative of a publisher. Wasn't just a random guy. And I'm not going to mention the publisher because I'm pretty sure that would be defamation on libel.
I don't know names, but I've heard similar things.
I'll tell you secretly another time. But you just sort of think, it's a weird place. Strange things happen in LA.
But then again, I mean, I always thought E3 was full of wankers. Ha 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 ha.
Lol.
Not wrong.
Yeah.
I try
It's
to
not
avoid
even a
going
joke.
there if at all possible, frankly. It's not fun. It's not even productive. It's just...
I stopped going about 2 years ago, and I had the most productive E3 ever when I didn't go. Like, I did better articles.
Same.
I knew more of what was happening. I didn't have to pretend to like anybody. It was a lot of fun for me. I just sat here, watched a press conference, had a wank and a biscuit. Great day. Couldn't do any of that. Couldn't do that for the companies I worked for, where the budget, bless them, the scrappy companies, where we're like shacked up in sex hotels like we were for PAX, like 3 men in a room in this sex hotel in Seattle, where you could actually order room service dildos. And yet the shower was so tiny, I had to like just do bits of me at a time. I don't know what sex hotel has.
You don't order
like,
someone up to the room with a
shower.
sponge.
Yeah.
I know that well. I had one hotel room, a similar thing. I managed to actually, I did prove it was possible. I realised I could be having a shit whilst washing my hair in the sink with my feet in the shower. It was just like, this is incredible. I can do everything at once.
Right? Isn't it? You know,
absolutely. I mean, obviously, it doesn't end up being efficient. It just ends up being messy. But you've got to try.
Yeah. That would be the kind of feature that Gearbox would announce, I'd imagine, as part of their... Oh, no, it's not a bug, it's a feature. It's totally fine. We designed this with a modern gamer in mind.
It would be amazing. It would be amazing to go to E3 if you actually got... If I could go to E3 and actually interview people on camera, it would be brilliant. But it's just like, it's never going to happen because...
So you're interviewing the press release they were given and were told to regurgitate. You're not interviewing the person talking to
It's very hard to get new information out of people in those. I tend to find.
And also, it's just the way that the industry is set up is because everything is so very much about nicey. We're not talking about multiplayer. Okay, well, I'll just ask you some stuff about stuff you talked about already. People are so... There's no degree of actual pressing or actual confrontation that if you do actually turn up to interviews and actually press people and stuff and actually put people on the spot, you just get, like, you're not talking to people again. And it's a thing that most industries, it doesn't happen. Most industries, it'll be like, maybe a slap on the wrist, but then it's fine. But in games, it's just like,
You're now blacklisted. Enjoy not getting anything ever again.
And it means the only time I ever actually get a chance to grill people these days is when BBC journalists happen to drop me in rooms with people without anyone knowing about it. But otherwise, you just can't do it.
What a good show that was. That was some real fucking actual debate discussion in journalism. It's like, this sounds very strange. I'm not used to this in video games. It's a bit weird.
It is, and it's because you never get the opportunities to do it, because it's very easy just to.
It's a trick you could. It reminds me, there was that cartoon. I think it was a Looney Tunes cartoon where the guy is going to a talent agent and he does all these different acts and it's not going over well. He says, "I've got one really good act." It's an old joke as well, and he does something that ends up killing him or something. And I know at the end of the Looney Tunes cartoon, his ghost is there. He does this amazing thing that ends up killing him, and then his ghost's there, and he says the only problem with the trick is I can only do it once. And the same is true if you break embargo, say, on a review that you really want to tell people is shit. If you want to hammer someone in an interview, it can be a glorious thing that you can only do once.
So that's it. Yeah.
And everybody's got the opportunity to do that the one time, and no one wants to spend their one credit, basically. No. Until they really, really need it.
Also, though, because there just isn't a platform within games yet where you can have it. I mean, obviously in the UK, we've got the amazing thing with, like, he's stepped down now, but for years we've had Jeremy Paxman. The fact that if you don't turn up to Paxman, then they say, we wanted to talk to this person about this. They refuse to come here. And that's a big deal. So people are actually more afraid of being like,
why are you hiding? You wouldn't go in front of Paxman?
If I was like, I asked Peter Moore to come and talk to me, and he said no. Work out what that. Everyone should be like, well, of course he did, mate. Like,
I think, I think ever so slowly the tide's turning. I think, now, especially now that a lot of, thanks to YouTube especially, a lot of guys have come up to become personalities as well as just faceless journalists. Like, a big problem I have with a lot of old games journalism is everybody working in it were building brands and they weren't building themselves. I think that's one of the issues we've had with so many layoffs recently in games websites. They fired people who did nothing but spend their careers building the brand that just jettisoned them, and they then have nothing. One of the things where I was very fortunate with was I was able to make myself a bit of a name outside of, say, Destructoid, to where when I part ways with Destructoid, I can get a job somewhere. Because I had that opportunity, very fortunate opportunity to build a name and a brand and what have you. And YouTube allows people to do that a lot more directly. I mean, obviously we have Totalbiscuit and developers can be scared of crossing someone like that and fucking with them too much. And having that fear, like, I don't think control and power should be in too much of anybody's core.
No,
but
absolutely not.
having some balance there, having some control come back to the game's coverers is important and crucial, and it's something we haven't had for a while. And I think one of the turning points for me was when a rep from Sega, who I won't name, and I won't name the country he's from either, so try and pinpoint him, basically said to me, why would we blacklist you? You just buy the games and shit on them that way. There are a lot of people that in the industry that are recognizing that individuals are starting to have a bit more power when it comes to covering games and don't want to treat them like shit. Some of them still do, but you know, they end up all the more sort of negatively affected by it. And the personalities have their personalities. It's not like the old days where the excuse was, we can't be blacklisted because we need the access to, otherwise our audience will go away to people who do have access.
It's like, no, they won't.
It doesn't matter anymore.
No.
You know, people come to YouTubers for their personalities. They come and, you know, they watch Inquisition or WTF is or you know, Sponge Squad and all this kind of stuff for the personalities first, and then the games. The games are lucky they're featured.
Yeah, I mean, that gets back to the nice little thing that we were talking about weeks ago, and that Matt Lees has discussed in great detail, even on the BBC, which is the idea that the channel space is limited, and some channels are choosing to monetize that space and basically double dip on that and effectively sell that space to other companies. But the point is correct that there is limited space, and if you get featured on a channel like that, and your game is at least competent, then you are guaranteed a fairly high degree of sales, at least on the larger channels, and people are having to compete for that space. And frankly, if you fuck around when it comes to getting copies to people like that, especially if you happen to be AAA, then you suffer directly from that. You know, comparing. I think I always go back to like my old Far Cry 3 video, which got like a million views fairly quickly, and then I compare it to releasing a video of a game that just came out like yesterday, and then I didn't get code for, and then I wasn't able to hit the embargo for. And you might think, oh, well, that sucks for you because you only got 300,000 views on that. Yeah, but I liked that game, and now 700,000 more people don't know it. So guess who got screwed? I can just make another video. You spent years making this game. I spent significantly less time making this video. I can make another video to make up for that. You can't make another game to make up for the lost publicity you just threw away because you decided not to play ball with the people that now have the audience. And that those people are not people like IGN anymore. It is moving away from that, and what you said earlier about personality is so key. Yeah. It's the same, Jeff Gerstmann. I keep getting you two mixed up for some reason. But Jeff Gerstmann said this years ago. It's like, the byline is what matters. We want to be known by our names, not by the company that we work for, because each person has different preferences, and it's better for the consumer to know what those preferences are.
I've seen too many talented
companies
people.
Companies have incredible walls up in place to stop this from happening. Like, some more strong than others, but traditionally, within traditional media, there are lots of ways that they basically make sure that can't happen. And there's one publisher in the UK in particular who are basically, they're basically the shittest company in games media in the UK. They are so good at ensuring that their staff just are consistently worthless, because it's a power play. Because the problem is if you actually get to a situation where members of the people you're hiring are deemed to be invaluable, then suddenly you have to start paying them money. And that's not something that traditional media likes to do to editorial staff, because the whole thing, that's one of the main reasons the whole thing is fucked. It's like the people actually making things aren't getting paid. The people who are selling adverts to go on the things are getting paid loads of money, and it's just like, what? But I mean, they're honestly, it's coming from somebody who's kind of realized the same thing that Jim. I actually read your thing about it recently, Jim, about how your advice. It's like, yeah, I've been doing the same thing, like trying to make a name for myself. But when you're within the traditional structure, that's really hard. You actually got to be really clever to work out ways of doing it, because generally speaking, and actually Video Gamer I used to work for, still, great guys, great company. They actually they gave me a lot of freedom that most places wouldn't, because most places don't want you to be good, because that's not good for them. They just want people to create content. And yeah, it does suck for a lot of people who've given a huge amount of their career to doing that and then found that nobody really knows who they are.
Yeah,
but it's like,
it happened too many times. Like, incredibly talented people who can't pay their fucking heating bill because. And
it's a shame, because these are people who are great writers or great producers of things, but they're just not people who are perhaps as savvy and as sort of cutthroat as maybe we are. We've got an eye for how to kind of be like, oh, I'm going to get sidelined here, where some people are a lot more naive but talented. And it's like,
well, yeah, I mean, it's people getting in just, they need a paycheck now, not later. And there used to be a time when, and to some degree kind of still is, that you joined a site and doing that gave more eyeballs to your work. Yeah. The problem is that it gave eyeballs to words. It didn't give eyeballs to you. And most people we can name maybe one, but I ask it, the average viewer, name one reviewer that works for IGN without using Google. Go. You can't, can you? No.
I'm not a big IGN fan.
Yeah. What about GameSpot? What about Polygon? Kotaku? No?
I can do them, actually. I can do some of them. But only because I'm a bloody industry professional.
Exactly. You're an industry professional.
I know some of them as friends. That's why I can do it.
Yeah. It's like, if you're talking about Rock, Paper, Shotgun, you probably at least knew some of the guys that used to work there. Everyone knew who Kieran Gillen was, and people still know who John Walker is and people like that. But then again, that is a more personality-orientated blog, basically, which is Walker, bylined right at the top,
Yeah, Walker's a good guy anyway, and very much believes in people getting the credit and the pay for what they do. He's all about treating people correctly and ethically anyway. Destructoid gave me a lot of freedom to where I could have my personality there, and there's me and Jonathan Holmes and guys that are quite well known.
Pictures at the top of the page. I mean, that's a big deal.
That helps a lot.
The amount of times I find myself reading something on a website and then I'm I get halfway through it and then I go, who wrote this? And I actually have to find someone on the page, like, who did this? Like, because it's piqued my interest. I'm like, who is this written by? Like,
and it really is sad. But I thanks to things like Patreon and people having a lot more personal blogs on their own YouTube channels, I think we're seeing people who were in traditional media now breaking out from that kind of machine. And even if they're within it, they're still finding ways to put themselves out there. And
it's
I just count myself very lucky. I sort of had the Jimquisition thing years before other sites were waking up and thinking, oh, maybe having a video series is a good idea.
The video series helps a lot as well, because it gets your face out there. It makes you more obviously recognizable pretty much immediately. Someone mentioned Danny O'Dwyer from GameSpot. Yeah, you know what he does? A video series where he shows his face a lot. That's probably got something to do with it. It was the cornerstone of what made Giant Bomb. They did a shitload of that. Everyone knew what Jeff Gerstmann looked like in 2006.
It's the same you'll get with IGN. You know, you could probably, if you were to ask someone, if they could name anyone, they'd name Greg Miller or Colin Moriarty. The guys who have, like, the better-known podcast on there and do videos. They do videos and podcasts, and it gets their personality out there. And that's how you it's one way of building yourself outside of the brand you're building. Like, it's a mug's game to, say, work for a site like IGN or anywhere like that and work to build them up.
Well, yeah,
make sure that you get your fucking credit and your face out there.
That's kind of the risk that we are talking about earlier. At that point, when your personality becomes the reason why people are going to the site, you might as well take your personality off the site and get the full cut instead of a tiny little shriveled bit of it that's left over after everyone else has taken their money for doing nothing. And
I guess that's the whole problem, really. It's like fundamentally, the whole reason I feel that traditional media is falling on its arse is that most of the money is reserved for the people who sell adverts on stuff, right? Because you know, and they go like, "Oh, I've sorted you out adverts, so I've taken all this money."
Take it. And it's like, what you did?
It's got to a point where it's like, well, hang on a minute.
I wrote the thing that the adverts are being put on.
Yeah,
they're the reason.
And obviously,
I'm the reason that anyone's even seeing the adverts.
Yeah.
If you want to get even further into that, it's the same reason why I don't believe that games publishers and developers should be taking cuts from things like, oh, well, but you're getting money from it. It's like, no, ad revenue, like, people are coming for me. They're coming for me. They're not coming for you.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is it's like, it's kind of both the blessing and the curse of YouTube, and the fact that taking out those shitty middlemen who've been basically causing games media to just crumble like a shit biscuit for years, just because YouTube's just like, oh, you need ads, all right, here's some ads. And it's just like, just cutting out having somebody who sources you adverts for popular content is just incredible, because it suddenly means all these people whose jobs were basically pointless, but because they were the people who were directly dealing with the money, often ended up negotiating themselves the best cuts, because they were the most aware of how much money there was going around, whilst most writers were just like, well, I get to write about games, it's fine. Because as soon as there's a point, and every person I know who's worked as a professional in traditional games media hits a point where as soon as they know how much money there actually is going around, they're just fucked. It's like, fuck you, fuck everything. Like, why am I like failing to pay bills when there's this much money coming through my company? But that's what's been amazing about YouTube, is it's just like these people trying to get an in. You get these sleazy managers going up to young kids and being like, oh, I'll make you famous. And it's just like all these old school guys being like,
lock you into a contract in perpetuity, take 90% of your earnings, and
And obviously it's been wonderful because of that for years, and I wouldn't change that. But obviously, as we're seeing recently as well, it does create problems when, one of the advantages I used to have when I used to just work for a games publication is I didn't have to think about shit. I just turned up every day, I played a game, I told people what I thought about a game. And then I went home and my pay was fucking wank. But, I didn't have to think about anything. And obviously now I'm doing... with the whole crowdfunding thing, I need to spend a lot more time.
To everybody for
so
every single
lot of time.
Little red penny that you get from Patreon now. You are beholden.
I can't ignore anything. Like, I read every bit of criticism that's sent my way. I don't always act on it. I don't always respond on it, but I take it all in because I have to. I'm directly responsible because if you're controlling the finances of a company and the content, it's like it's a big bloody backpack, and I wouldn't complain about it, but it is like
bloody backpack.
It sounds terrifying. It's one of the reasons why I shy away from Kickstarter and Patreon for anything I've ever done, is to be that beholden to the audience. I already feel beholden enough in that I feel like I owe them for the success I have, and that is enough responsibility for me. To actually be
Yes.
that directly financially responsible makes me piss myself.
Yeah,
Oh
that,
no!
that
Don't get
scares
me
the
wrong.
shit out of
Like,
me.
it's funny because last time I was on this podcast, we were talking about this, John, like about the whole being successful on YouTube, and it was actually kind of that conversation, the things you said about that at the time, about having to like, about how to do it, that made me think, oh fuck, I just can't do it. Like, I can't do it, and that was almost the point where I was like, I'm boned. I don't know how to do this. And it's almost kind of like I've it's become so hard to crack into that traditional market now of getting really big on YouTube the old way and making your way, not even making money, just being able to do it.
Well, you've got to have the mass eyeballs in order for it to actually work. I mean, I think Patreon in that respect is fantastic because it allows niche content to survive. Because each viewer is worth a lot more if you go through a Patreon model. Whereas
exactly it.
every dollar that one viewer donates every month, they'd have had to have watched like 500 ads to make you that. They'd never even be shown that many, you know? It would never happen.
It's kind of like I was looking at it and I was like, can I get, if I change the sort of thing I did, could I get like millions of subscribers on YouTube? And I was sort of like, yeah, I reckon I probably could, but how long is it going to take me? And it's like,
could you
years.
still keep a roof over your head in the process of doing that?
It's like, no, I can't. And what are my other options? Well, I could go back into doing PR, and it's like all the other options just mean me stopping doing it. It's like this is a dead end. Like, I mean, maybe if I was younger, maybe if I was a teenager still living with my parents, it'd be like I could do it. But you know, when you're an adult, it's like, this is it's interesting. It's interesting, but you're right, Jim. It is terrifying, and I think it's quite funny. And anyone who thinks that I'm not constantly terrified by all of it is pleasantly misleaded.
It is really interesting that we have 3 people on the show that all have completely different business models. I find that intriguing. And and we all still have roofs. So that's good.
Yeah.
Somehow, for now.
That's all right.
We're making it work for now.
We could still afford little plastic TIE fighters, so I suppose that's okay. We're going to go to the break, folks. When we come back, we'll cover some industry news and talk a little bit more about anything else. And these two will probably try and stop me from talking about Dota 2 for the last hour. That's probably for the best. You're watching the Co-optional Podcast. Don't go anywhere. Here's some adverts. See you in a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the final hour or so of the Co-optional Podcast. But eating more chocolate fingers. They're pretty good. They will not last. I can guarantee it. There's one of the few things I miss about the homeland, gotta say.
Chocolate fingers are not meant for this world, I think.
No.
They're
are
an
made to be
ethereal
destroyed.
creature.
The Unterbiscuits.
Send them back.
It's like Schrodinger's finger, really. They exist in a non-state of between eaten and not eaten.
They are good. Actually, you may have missed this. You're going to need to, I'm glad you're sitting down for this, but over the past couple of years, they have actually introduced some variations and variants on the chocolate finger.
Interesting. Okay.
Which are fairly mind-blowing. There's a recent one they did, which is basically, it's chocolate coated, but then underneath, like another thin coating of white chocolate, and then with the biscuit, it has like some sort of caramelly fudge as well. And they are incredible, but the problem is you have the tendency.
You just
I know,
described
right?
Jesus in confectionery form.
They're really good, but they're so rich.
Checkmate,
the thing
atheists.
is, you try and eat them. You try and eat them like they're normal chocolate fingers, and you end up in a dark place quite quickly.
Yeah.
Because you can only eat about 6 of them in a row before you start to go, fuck. Like.
But by that point, you've already eaten 18 because you're just shoveling them down like you do fingers, and there is
always, obviously, a biscuit lag between reality and realization.
That's true.
You just got to be so careful. Kids, just don't be careful eating biscuits, all right?
Just remember the human stomach can't handle more than 30 biscuits per second, so...
I still love the fact that the first time I ever actually discovered that Totalbiscuit and you as a thing was when I posted a video of me and my friends eating biscuits while singing Bonnie Tyler's Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Yes, that was a bit of a weird one. It's like, what the fuck is this? Someone linked me this. I'm like, who the fuck is this?
I was equally bemused because I was like, why has this video suddenly had loads of views out of nowhere? Like, who the fuck is watching it? And then it was like, that's what happened.
That was a weird one. That was definitely a weird one, no doubt.
It was definitely a weird one, yeah.
All right, speaking of weird, so they've announced another Assassin's Creed game, and the cinematic trailer is out, and for some reason, it's coming out for PlayStation 3 and 360 only. Just want to remind people this is 2014.
Right.
Cool. You
you
understand
know
that?
what?
Excellent.
I'm not surprised. Because they've still got a huge install base there. They've realised they've missed a trick with Unity being on the next-gen consoles. So, well, say the current-gen consoles. And, knowing it's Ubisoft, of fucking course they would. Of fucking course they would. That they would announce a last-gen game just to mop up the dregs that are left. Just there are some chocolate fingers left on the plate. Let's scarf them down before anybody gets here.
Okay.
Of course they would.
Tell me twice.
To play devil's advocate, what I would say is maybe they'll be fucking amazing. Because the thing is, like, there is always that tendency, and we didn't, of like the last games to come out.
The last few were just,
they're just so good. Like, because it's almost like, because they've just got so used to using the hardware that it's just like, they don't have to think about optimization. And they might just knock it out of the park. And it might be that, like, not a lot of people know about them or play them, but they might just be fucking blinding. In the way that it still annoys me that they haven't ever released Rogue Galaxy on anything else other than the PS2.
Fucking game is
I never
incredible.
played it. I never played it because I was always like, well, I put my PS2 away now, so I'm not going to buy it. And then I thought, well, but I'm sure it'll come out on some. I'm sure they'll port it over. Never.
No, it's the best way to play it right now is put a PlayStation 2 emulator on your PC, run it on that, polishes it up nice. Rogue Galaxy is actually mind-blowingly good for those who don't know, and it's weird because it has the voice actor from Cowboy Bebop in it, but it's also kind of like playing a game of Cowboy Bebop. And just rolling around with your band of space pirates and doing JRPG things with this action combat system. It's so good.
Why not just bring it out on... honestly, it blows my mind that they don't just, like... I know that actually behind the scenes it's actually quite complicated to set up the business deals required and the handshakes and getting the old people back out of cupboards to sign things off. But just bring it out on Vita or something. That and, like, Final Fantasy 12. Like, come on. Like, I swear if they just went... Let's get like the 3 best JRPGs from the PS2 and port them out onto the Vita. I'd buy one.
I would buy each and every one of those. No problem.
The thing is, that all sounds good on paper, but what you really want is another Resident Evil. You want Resident Evil. You want a remaster of a remake.
Master, yeah.
That's what you want. You want a remake master make. That's what you want.
Yeah, but that's never going to happen, though. Like, no one's ever going to do something like that.
I can't think of anybody who would want to. I can't think of anybody who would be so gauche as to take a remade remaster and then remake a remaster of it. I can't think. That would be ludicrous.
I mean, what
that
kind
would
of
make this industry a farce.
We're gonna have to dig pretty deep to try and find a company that would do that.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think. Let's see, King.
It's Capcom.
Yes.
Hey!
Well done.
10 points.
Bonus points.
Yep.
Bonus points if we can talk about how the remastered remake looks worse than the original on a Dolphin emulator.
Yep. So for those who do not know, and we're dancing around being snarky bastards as always, Resident Evil.
Dance.
Indeed. That's not the snarky dance. That's
It
far
is.
too enthusiastic.
Ooh, isn't your game a bit shit?
Okay, maybe that is the snarky dance.
It's one
That's
of many,
why we're not
obviously.
allowed to E3 anymore.
Yeah.
This shit,
Dancing around the booth. Woo!
throwing glitter everywhere.
Yeah.
They are remaking the remake. In 2002, they released a remake of the original Resident Evil for the GameCube, yeah? And it was pretty good. They're now remaking the remake and supposedly upgrading it to 1080p, putting it on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. It will feature enhanced 3D models, and 5.1 surround sound, which you'd fucking well hope so, because that game came out 12 years ago. And the game that it was a remake of came out shitloads before that in the 90s. I can't remember when.
The thing I like most about this announcement is it was on Sunday night. I was just thinking about Resident Evil, and then I made a joke on Twitter that we've had a new generation for several months now, and Capcom hasn't put out Resident Evil for any of the systems. And normally, if somebody sneezes at the Capcom offices, they remake Resident Evil in response. And 2 days later, Resident Evil Remake Remaster is coming out. And And I must admit, I feel slightly godlike because of this. And this isn't the first time this has happened. I made an offhand reference to the Bug Princess being in Hyrule Warriors, and then a few weeks later they announced that the Bug Princess was in Hyrule Warriors. And I'm not saying that I am a god-elected prophet. Perhaps his chosen representative. Yeah, I'm not. I mean, it's for other people to say.
But we shouldn't discard the possibility. Like,
let's. If we're going to be open-minded,
basically, what you're saying is we need to teach the controversy, right, Jim? Is that the case?
Yes, I think we should indeed bring the controversy down, possibly on a stone tablet. And I'm not saying that shrines need to be built in my honor.
Well, no, you wouldn't do that.
There are so many churches here in Mississippi, and a few of them could be converted to follow the one true faith.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems there's a degree of redundancy there that could be repurposed.
I'm not saying I'm a physical god. I'm just saying that maybe if there was a physical god, he'd make jokes about Resident Evil remakes that turn out to be real things. And I'm not saying...
the one true Jim, will you accept this offering? I have nothing else to give apart from my firstborn. Please, Jim. Tell me.
I consider this good, my son.
Will they ever make a sequel to Planescape
I raised to you my Carillion Corvette.
I just
please
need to know.
Accept
the
it.
Carillion Corvette is pleasing to mine eyes.
Just waving around my Carillion Corvette here, just waggling it around in front of everybody. There we go, just put that back down. There we go.
But I do worry about Capcom in the way that you worry about an elderly relative walking down the road and, falling down some stairs or something. I kind of feel for them because I just feel like they're in a really bad way and they're kind of maybe hiding that and not very well.
Well, they're a Japanese company. They will never admit that they're in a bad way.
Yeah, I just feel like they're a bit fucked and they're just going to be really fucked. And that would be a great shame because they do occasionally do really good things.
They do. Yeah.
But they just get so many things wrong. They're just a bit doddery. I think a lot of Japanese companies do that because they're very conservative in how they work as businesses. And unfortunately, these aren't times in which you can be conservative within the tech arena because things are changing. And it feels like by the time they jump onto things, they feel like a dad who walks into a room with a baseball cap on backwards and goes, "Oh, have you listened to dubstep?" It's like, yeah, you're kind of jumping on the boat at the wrong time here.
Oh god, there's going to be dubstep in the Resident Evil remake.
Pretty much guarantee it.
Yeah,
and it's sad because Capcom actually for the longest time were industry leaders, certainly. Yeah. I mean, even in terms of fighting games, they're getting surpassed by other companies, and that's really sad because there's no way that should ever be fucking happening. Mm-hmm. Or Capcom, where's Street Fighter V? We don't have the money to make it. Would you like some more DLC for Street Fighter 4? I mean, I suppose Street Fighter 4 was pretty good. But
Resident Evil 4 was so good that an early prototype for Resident Evil 4 that wasn't quite right to be Resident Evil 4 became Devil May Cry. It's a game that was so good it splintered off into two amazing games.
Well, I mean, both those games basically effectively solidify genres. Survival action and spectacle fighting were basically started by those two games, give or take.
So good. So good.
If they weren't the first, they were certainly the ones that set the bar.
Big time.
That was Capcom in a nutshell for the longest time.
That was my big tragedy with Resident Evil 6, was how after that series had set so many trends and blazed so many trails, they were the ones in the shadow of everyone else, picking up the scraps from Call of Duty's table, desperately trying to remain relevant when they once told us how this industry works. They were like, this is what's good now. Yeah. You put your faith in me now, as Voldemort would say. And then they're the ones turning around now, licking the arse of anyone that will prise their cheeks open for them. And it's sad because so many companies, not just Capcom, but so many companies seem to forget that to be a market leader, you have to lead.
Yes, not follow.
Whatever you think about Call of Duty 4 set the level.
Yeah,
it stood in front of everyone and said, you do things our way now. And then everyone did. And then they think if we do what they're doing, we'll become the kings of the mountain as well. But no, you don't become king shit of fuck mountain by doing what the current king is doing. You depose him by being better than him and blazing more trails than him, reaching more audience members than him. And the only way you reach more audience members is by varying what you do. And people don't seem to fucking realize this. They don't realize that everyone abandoned survival horror, but survival horror fans still exist.
And then survival horror was
And it's
picked
an
up by other
open
like
market.
indie developers.
Exactly. It's an open fucking market. It's an open hole. You've just got to stick your dick in it. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, we only just have the Evil Within sort of popping up and saying, hey, guys, yeah, you remember survival horror? Yeah, indie devs have been making really good ones for the last few years. Where the fuck have you been? And then we look at it, and it's like, well, I'm sorry, but I'm not really convinced. Like, I could maybe just go play Amnesia or Outlast, and these are probably better than what you're making right now.
That's the funny thing, and actually, there is that wall between the I think there is a degree. I understand the degree of like the kind of probably like PC master race has been built by the fact that for such a long time, specialist media have not been adequately talking about PC games.
Yeah.
And it's like all of the excitement about people playing Outlast was like, yeah, come on, like Amnesia and stuff, like all these things, like. It kind of felt like
I'll be honest, I'm very glad they weren't
survival.
talking about it. If they were, I probably wouldn't have a job.
Well, that's true, but I get annoyed when people like get a bit in any way like platform agnostic, because it's just like if you love games and you love a type of game, you'll hunt them down. Like
Yeah, totally.
like it's like I'm gonna play that game, like, and
thing that
even if I have to buy
I
a
still have
console.
my 360 so I can play Concept Saga, which is a mixture of Magic the Gathering and Monopoly. Like, that's not
That
on
is
any
niche
other
as fuck,
platform.
but I've got a lot of time for that.
Yeah, it's actually fucking great. Like, you should
Yeah.
find a copy of Concept Saga. It's so good. And I mean, I would love to. It kind of comes back to the frame rate debate. I used to be platform agnostic, and I kind of still am. Where I still own all the consoles, and I'll still play the games, but when the games don't run as well as I want them to, and when they're just an unpleasant experience to play, I'm like, well, fuck it. I guess I can live without that game then.
You must have been living in Beast PC zone for quite a while as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a very good PC probably for like, actually, I'd say 4 years, ever since I started doing YouTube, and I pumped my PC up to kind of get to YouTube standards and kind of kept it there. It definitely changed things. Whereas before that, I mean, I was playing a shitload of games on my PlayStation 2 and my Nintendo Wii. I mean, I still think the old Wii has a fantastic lineup. I mean, shit like
Good
Xenoblade,
stuff.
Little King's Story, even things like Boom Blocks are very fucking fun. And the Wii actually, was Red Steel 2. Like, the original Red Steel was bollocks, but Red Steel 2...
Red Steel 2 was great.
Yeah, Mad World, pretty much everything that was done by Platinum. There's some good shit on that.
I mean, I know it's like, explaining how Nintendo could be running their business better is very much like the kind of Ferrero Rocher of our generation, but it's like one thing that drives me mental about the fact that the most recent Zelda game, what's called Skyward Sword, apparently if you emulate that on a PC, it's full of HD textures. Like most of the game has been textured in HD, and yet it's like, guys, you made this, you've already got like a HD version of this game that runs on an architecture that the Wii U runs Wii games, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. So it's like, what are you doing? It's like, why are you sitting on? It's like somebody going, "Oh, I don't have any money." It's like, you're sitting on a gold bar. I can see it there, like, because I'm fairly sure that was one of those end of generation games that lots of people didn't play. I'd love to play Skyward Sword, but I'd sold my Wii.
It's like Wii's a prime example for that. There was those 3 games that kind of came out towards the end. It was Last Story. There was something with like the word tower in it, Pandora's Tower, I think it was,
Tower.
and
Xenoblade.
Xenoblade.
Yeah.
Those big 3. It was Operation Rain, wasn't it? That tried to bring Rainfall. Yeah, that brought them to the US. I mean, I think one of those, I can't remember if it's Last Story or Pandora's Tower, is not that amazing, but the other 2 are fucking brilliant. Like, really, just really good games.
And it's sad because we got rid of our Wiis by then. I was like, the thing is, the Wii as a console.
You emulate them
retained
now. It's just easier. Like, Dolphin is so fucking easy to set up. I mean, I got that thing. I have a copy of Xenoblade, but I had to end up getting an ISO of it because it's dodgy with the disk drive, whatever. And let's be honest, who has a disk drive anymore? Downloaded that, ran it. It took me about 5 minutes to set up. And I cranked the internal resolution up. Thing looked great. Still ran at 30, which sucked, but it was an RPG. I can kind of get around it, and it was worth playing because it's just good. Same thing before they brought God Hand back. I did the same thing with God Hand. I put God Hand on a PlayStation 2 emulator. I'm like, oh look, this looks just fine in 1080p. Let's fucking punch people.
Among the gaming press, it is considered incredibly gauche, if not wholly unprofessional, to ever talk about emulators and ROMs.
So I'm glad I'm not a member of the gaming press.
Yeah, and suggesting that it's a good thing. But if you're serving your audience, at the end of the day, you're going to have to, at some point, I'm probably going to do a Jimquisition on this at some point, and just come out and say, emulation's better half the fucking time.
It's
Well, it
difficult
is.
because of
And
the legal
it's-
side of it. I think.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah. I think a lot of times it's because you work for publishers, and it's basically like you can't be seen
Can't
to
really
be
do that.
promoting stealing publishers' products.
Yeah,
But
you know,
when you get to the point
it's just
when
an
it's like-
annoying attitude. Because, like, look, I own a Wii and a Wii U, and I own the games that I'm emulating.
Yeah.
Like,
And that's-
But when
that is
Nintendo's
fine.
refusing
Yeah.
to bring certain games over, and there's no other way to get hold of the
Yeah.
game other than emulation, and when digital games are coming out and just overcharging because they've got to keep some sort of ridiculous parity with retail, and when games that are 20 years old are coming out and they're charging like $20 for them just because they feel they can. At some point, if you're any sort of fucking professional, you're going to have to tell your audience, you know what, this is bullshit because I could get that game right now for free. And you know what? If you made it more convenient, I'd pay you the money
and there's
for
no
it.
excuse
But
in the
you-
digital
it's-
age. None.
Yeah,
Zero
none at
excuse
all.
anymore. There was when it was difficult to stock them on shelves. I can understand that. Now there is no fucking excuse. And I've said this so many times before about, I mean, it applies to pretty much every piece of media. If you do not make it available in an accessible way that's reasonably priced, people will find a way to get it for nothing. And then you get nothing.
Yeah.
I had a
And
band
people
recently.
will, even if they can get it for free, they will pay if you make it convenient.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had a band recently where I literally spent half a day trying to buy an album because I wanted to buy an album. And I realized I was like, I've wasted, like, I don't even want to think
Half
of how
a
much
day to buy
money
a
I've just
fucking
wasted
CD.
trying to buy a CD. In the end, I just pirated it and bought a ticket to their gig, being like, that's the best I can do. But it turned out it's because they had it, like, they released it in the US and then 4 months later released it in the UK. So I couldn't buy it on iTunes because I didn't have a US account. And it's like,
my-
I am
That's
trying
the
to
worst.
give you money.
They're fucking
Like,
files.
I
Like,
know.
It's
like,
the same with games releases. Like, there's a Rocks, Paper, Shotgun's No Oceans campaign. It's like, yeah, there are no oceans on the internet. There was no fucking excuse to be a 3-day or 3-week gap between release in the UK and the US where they
Welcome
both speak
to
the same
global
fucking language.
market, you ridiculous dinosaurs.
But actually, the point
But the market will decide. But
The
point
market
I
doesn't know where
decided-
its own fucking arsehole is.
indeed. And if
point I
people
just-
can't find it on the market, they'll go and make their own market. And that market's not giving you any money. We want to
but
give
I-
you money. Let
I
us.
used to be quite hopeful with this stuff. I used to be quite hopeful about the future of all of these things. But I think the point at which I kind of gave up on having a console as my main kind of platform was when, with the Xbox One, they announced that all of the Xbox Live Arcade stuff was that was like now legacy, and you wouldn't be able to take it with you. It was like, but what about my main question? And this is dumb because I had shitloads of XBLA games I bought over the years anyway. But my main question in my mind was, but what about Gunstar Heroes? Because Gunstar Heroes is
well,
probably
that's the
one
main
of my
question in
favorite
everybody's
games.
mind, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite games of all time. It's an incredible game, and I was actually thrilled when they re-released it as an XBLA game because it meant I could do the thing and be like, there's some money. I've done this legitimately. Now I can play my favorite game legitimately. And then it's like, how many years did it take you to release that on the Xbox 360, right? Now I have to wait for the Xbox One version to
Which
buy it
probably
again.
will never come.
Yeah, which probably will never come because they probably didn't sell that many copies originally.
Yeah.
I think one of the best things about the PC platform going forward is because the architecture fundamentally cannot just remarkably change overnight.
No.
Which means any PC game you have now
Still
might
gonna
become
work.
fiddlier to get working in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, but you will still be able to do it.
Yeah, there
And
are
it's
not
like,
that many games that you can't use. Like the only one that like,
Yeah.
springs to mind, funnily enough, comes back to 40k. There's one called Chaos Gate, which was a turn-based strategy that will not run on modern operating systems. It just will not. Like you would have to install a copy of Windows 95 to make it run again. But most games, the
It's
vast
rare,
majority,
Yeah.
and any
And actually,
DOS
as
game, you
if-
can just put on DOSBox and it'll work perfectly.
Yeah,
all of them.
If the company doesn't fix it, someone will. As we've learned with
GOG,
some,
you know.
yeah, as we've learned
Yeah.
with some modern games that come out and don't fucking work like they should on PC, someone on their own time,
fix that
maybe even
shit.
within a few hours, will fix it.
Yeah.
Because once again, it comes into this idea of the market will create itself if the people supposedly leading that market can't be asked. Someone will step in and provide that service for free when we might have paid
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
Well, actually, on the topic of promoting emulation, actually, Jim, you're spot on in the fact that, like, and it's worth shouting about the fact that we've kind of almost got used to now just buying multiple versions of games, like, over a period of 15 years, being like, I've brought Chrono Trigger, like, probably two or three times. Like, you're like, oh, it's a new version on this console. I want a version on the current console so I can play it. And it's like, really, with the laws of emulation, we have no obligation to do that. Like, you've bought the game, as long as you emulate that version of it.
But again, I mean, it's if they're selling it in a convenient way, we will pay for that. Like,
and a reasonable way.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to talk about unreasonable, you talk, I think, about Nintendo's Virtual Console. It's like, you're going to spend $10 to $20 on... No, I don't think so, actually.
I've always said this.
Super Metroid, I bought 4 times. I'm not buying it again.
Yeah.
I am not spending more than $1, and even that galls me. I'm not spending more than $1 on Mario Brothers.
But I'll tell you what I would do.
Mario Brothers.
I would buy a subscription to a Nintendo channel for $5 or $10 a month that let me play all those classic games whenever I wanted to. I'd do that.
I mean, if it was good, if it worked how I'm imagining in my fable fairy tale magical land, where consoles can handle the digital marketplace with a degree of fucking competence, I would pay for that for my mystery fantasy version. Of course, it will probably end up like PlayStation Now, where it's a load of steaming bullshit.
Problem is, anything that isn't first party, anything that isn't 100% first party, like the contracts involved in bringing stuff up is a nightmare. Do you remember a few years ago we had problems with Activision of games just disappearing and all DLC
It just happened recently.
Like, yeah, because
Deadpool just vanished off, and a bunch of Marvel games just vanished off Steam.
Yeah, it's because they had a time-sensitive contract. And the problem with all these games is, like, if you want to get like a SNES game from 20 years ago, like the actual the legal process, and the problem is, again, this boils down to the fundamental problem of the world of the people who do the boring shit that tie everything together being paid all of the money.
That's why I have so little respect for copyright law as it exists today. Why I have so little respect for trademarks as they exist today, because they don't serve the people who ever created the art in the fucking first place. No. It just serves the people that currently stole away the fucking... Like, they call pirates thieves. But as far as I'm concerned, the fucking vampires between the customers and the developers who leached away all this shit by convincing the world they were necessary, somehow they pulled the wool over everyone's eyes to create a job for themselves that didn't really need to exist.
Yeah.
And they're, you're telling us we are thieves if we pirate something, but the content's already been burgled as far as I'm convinced. and yeah, like, it's just utter fucking bullshit that these lawyers get in the way, and it's why I can't get like a great licensed game anymore. Like, I couldn't go onto the PlayStation Network or Xbox Live and get like the Aliens vs Predator arcade game, because Sega owns the rights to make the Aliens games, but Capcom had the rights to them back then, and getting that done is such a dance.
I think it ends up being a case of like they have to pay the legal teams to sort it out, and the legal teams to have meetings and so on, and then their legal costs alone for just arranging these simple.
Not worth it.
It would just be like, well, we're going to sell this many copies. It's not worth it.
Yeah,
and that's why I wonder how many publishers actually, in a weird way, are like just. They don't care. I mean, how many remakes of Chrono Trigger and how many HD remakes of Chrono Trigger got shut down legally by like Enix or?
Which is so weird. It's like what? Well, I mean, one, it's a Japanese company, so I suppose that's to be expected. That happens a lot, but. I mean, one, don't announce your fucking fan remake or whatever until it's actually done.
Done it.
It's how the Streets of Rage remake got away with it, because they were pretty much done by the time Sega. And it was already on a torrent site. So fuck you, Sega. I played that. It was great, and I'll continue to play that. There's nothing you can do about it. Mm-hmm. But it's like, really, why exactly do you need to shut this down? I mean, really, who exactly is it hurting? But,
there must have been 4 or 5 getting shut down before they went. Should we just re-release it on a console where people can buy it now? Like, it's like just to have like, oh, we've got like one of the most critically acclaimed games of all time in our back catalogue. Should we try and sell it?
Well, no, because we need another sequel to Final Fantasy 13. So
those fucking morons don't even know why they're successful. Like, to be as shocked as they were that Bravely Default actually did well. Like, the thing that got us where we are today got us somewhere good.
Jeez, it turns out people still like that. Yeah. It's weird how people's tastes don't magically disappear overnight.
Did Square Enix win a competition to be a game publisher? Because I have no idea how else they got where they are. Like, there was some little boy who was once the owner who like got a Make-A-Wish Foundation thing fulfilled. That he could have his own fucking game company, and then they got lucky with some Final Fantasy or something.
I don't know.
What's this you've drawn? Ooh, a Moogle. How strange.
I have a love-hate relationship with Square Enix in the same way, like, they're actually a very, very good PC publisher more often than not. and then they just do this most random stuff, and it's mostly Japan's fault. It's like, what is any of this? And then there'll just be something, and then it's like, here's Hitman Go. It's like, oh, this is actually pretty good. But wait, you say Square Enix? But you were just doing this a minute ago. It's like they're schizophrenic. They have multiple personality disorder.
Meanwhile, they build the Luminous engine, which nobody asked for, make a fucking giant CGI trailer that must have cost $1 million to make, and then wonder where all their fucking money went.
Why do we have to sell 6 million copies of Tomb Raider in order for that to be successcul?
Why don't you look at each individual strand of her hair that you fucking animated that nobody noticed?
We actually had like the whole like dichotomy with Square Enix. We had like in the games podcast I record, Daft Souls, like we had an entire thing just about Bravely Default and about how it's like you're just like, this is so good, but why do you have to fucking do this? Bravely Default is so close to just being perfect, but then it still just goes, yeah, but we're a Square Enix JRPG, so we're going to be like really fucking annoying for no reason. Like these ways, it's just like, what is wrong with you? Like, would you like doing? Do you like hurting us?
You know, a normal person, learns through iteration, right? And they gradually refine their ideas, and they learn what's good and what's not, and they get better and better. In theory,
yeah. Precisely.
But Square Enix just keeps forgetting. Like, it's like, oh yeah, so this is, we did this, and it's like, here's the history of the Final Fantasy games, especially like, let's say 7 through 10, the PlayStation 2 stuff, and PlayStation 1, obviously. Here's how we did it. And then they make 13, and it's like, well, none of this is nothing to do with any of this. What? And then we're going to make 2 more of those for some reason, and it would have been 3 if they hadn't repurposed Versus to be 15. Is it 15? Yeah. I think I've lost track of the bloody numbers.
I believe currently it's 15. It's hard to tell because Square Enix seems to love announcing games more than it loves to actually make them. So they've got 50 different games in production at any one time. Again, wondering where all their fucking money went. And
where's Kingdom Hearts 3?
Yeah.
Tomb Raider only sold 4 million copies, though. Only 4 million. How's anyone supposed to live off selling 4 million of anything?
Yeah, I mean, that's ridiculous. It's, and there was only like 20 DLC packs, so I don't know how they expect to make any money off that. Speaking of making money, like, it's kind of changing the subject a little bit, but it comes up with the whole sort of Nintendo channel subscription thing that, and we could talk about PlayStation Now as well while we're doing this, because that's entered beta too. But EA Access. Now, I feel like I might be one of the few people that actually sees this as a good deal, and a lot of people fucking hate it. Now, I would like to know, like, everyone's just opinion on the EA Access system in general. Aside from the fact that it's EA, and maybe we don't want to play EA games, but let's assume for a second that we did. Now, is EA Access $4.99 a month, which is a subscription service on Xbox One that lets you basically play a bunch of their games? It also gives you some discounts on future stuff, like 10% off, and you get to download upcoming EA games 5 days before the release date and play them for a time, apparently. You don't have to pay for that either. So you get it looks like you get a 5-day demo prior to the thing coming out as part of your kind of $4.99 thing, and then you can buy the title and kind of pick up where you left off. But it also lets you play stuff like Battlefield 4 and Peggle 2, apparently, for as part of the subscription. I mean, this all seems good, right?
I think it's good. And I mean, I think also there's a tendency, specialist media have been bad at doing this in the past, but I think also like the YouTube crowd is also bad at it. Is like, we all have a tendency of just only ever really focusing on like kind of really serious gamers, the sort of people who will sit and listen to a 3-hour podcast about games.
And whereas I think we'll pre-order something for $60 and not blink an eye at it,
Yeah, and also people who need to have things, who have that kind of almost insane need to have games on the launch day. I still get that, even though I know it's insane. I don't need to go out and spend that much money. I could wait a month, but no, I need it right now. Whereas I feel like there's a lot of people, and that's why I think stuff like PS Plus is really cool. People who actually, and I spend a lot of time with these people now, just unfortunately I'm an adult and I find myself at weddings with people who are these sort of people who just like, they love games, they love playing games, but they're not really asked about keeping up with it. They just want to know what games are really good. And like, they're not asked about playing stuff that's the new thing. They just want to play good stuff.
Yeah.
And I think for these guys, it's kind of like, I think stuff like the EA thing is going to be great for basically the sort of people who will just buy FIFA every year or Madden. Yeah. And that's mainly what they play. But they also like to have a go on other stuff. but they're not that into games. And actually, they'll probably buy this just to be able to play the new FIFA a week before it comes out, and then we'll actually have a bit of fun being able to just play Peggle and a bit of Battlefield in between.
Stuff that's kind of in the vault.
Yeah.
It's also $30 a year. Like, if you buy the whole thing, $30 a year is not that terrible. Like,
No.
I've got to say, that's half the price of a game for a year of some games that you can play while your subscription's running and some other benefits. I mean, that to me seems fairly reasonable.
If you're not asked about playing stuff immediately, for me, it seems exactly the same deal as PS Plus, of being like, if you just want to play stuff and you're not asked when you play it, fine, it's pretty good. I mean, the thing is, EA get a lot of flack, but they do actually make pretty good games.
Some of them are good.
For your average punter. Yeah. Obviously, they get things wrong. Right? They generally get things wrong. And I think also, and I really think this is a major part of how EA are so hated, I think their communications department and the way that their business arm communicate what they're doing is fucking insane. Like, you know, what we talked about earlier, Ubisoft have just got an incredible marketing arm. They're so good at tugging us all off beautifully to a really nice perfection.
There's a quote that's going to be on a billboard in the London Tube next year from you, Matt.
The judges come up
brilliant at tugging us off.
Full 8s and 9s. It's a really solid performance, you know. Really top jazz stuff. But like EA, they are terrible. They say dumb things. And I really feel sorry for some of the people who make games for EA, because they're just there like, why are they saying this shit? Why are they doing this shit? I feel there's a major disconnect. Because I do feel that EA, actually, some of the games they make are good games. But by the time the games come out, nobody gives a shit, because they've already just pissed away so much goodwill that people just don't want to hear it.
This is the problem with, you've been quite kind to them. So I'm just going to talk about them.
Yeah.
A little bit.
It's like, are we getting the weapons out? Is that how it's going to be?
The big problem with
weapons. I've got some rice cakes. They're not a weapon.
The problem with this
You
subscription
got a pitchfork
model,
anywhere.
the problem with this subscription model is the same problem that pretty much a lot of things that are wrong in the game industry is it's predicated on trust. We pre-order games because we're supposed to trust the companies. We were supposed to let the Xbox One have all of its DRM because we were meant to trust Microsoft. And I don't give trust to people that haven't fucking earned it, and I don't trust EA. And
no, that's fair.
Here's why. Mostly, because of all the lies and stuff that we talked about earlier. And
that's a pretty good reason not to trust people if they constantly lie to you, yes.
If they lie, I don't trust the way they treat a lot of their IP. Another thing that I don't fucking trust with them is I don't trust that eventually. I mean, this is an industry that would rather take away than offer in any situation.
Okay, that's fair.
Let's look at the original incarnation of Xbox Live, for example, where they took away demos, they took away access to Netflix, Facebook, internet, like all these things that you could get elsewhere. They held them to ransom. It's a lot easier to ransom than to offer. Now, right now, as it stands, the EA Access thing looks like a decent offer. I will say that. It looks like a good deal now.
Yes.
But I don't trust EA, and I don't trust that we'll change later and they'll alter the deal and we'll have to pray they don't alter it any further. The big issue I have with this as well is welcome to a world where every publisher has its own fucking subscription service. Where right now it's $30 a year for EA, and then it's $30 a year for Activision's version, and then another $30 for Ubisoft's version. And okay, you don't have to do them all. But what happens when these companies start competing with each other for their own subscription services, get desperate, and have to take away? What happens when the taking happens?
I feel like that's only going to happen with like a couple of the mega publishers who do actually have enough of a spread of things. Even Activision have given up with that now. Like, it's basically like Skylanders, Call of Duty, and Destiny. Like, it feels like Activision have sort of realised that it's better to double down on a couple of things. And I can't imagine them doing like something like that. They've tried it. Obviously, they've already tried that with Call of Duty subscription. It didn't really. They kind of ditched it. They kind of gave up with that.
Yeah. Whereas the Battlefield Premium thing, that's still around. That's definitely still around, and they'll probably keep having it, I'd imagine.
You're right.
Enough people bought it.
Of course they will.
I think the difference is what makes PS Plus such an awesome deal and a continually awesome deal is because there's a reason for Sony to keep it good, because basically Sony fucked themselves by giving everybody free online for so long.
Yes.
Because they were like, oh shit.
Which, from a PC gaming perspective, is the most hilarious thing about. No, we gave them free online. What have we done?
But they then were like, how can we get money every year like Xbox do, because they make so much money from? How can we do that? And then they realized they couldn't.
Evil twats in the
process.
process.
If they turned around suddenly and went, oh yeah, guys, sorry, with the PS4 it's going to be basically exactly like Xbox Live, people would have kicked off. And so the middle ground they've gone is being like, look, you sign up for this and you get all these free games, and you can keep collecting these free games, and you can collect free games for consoles you don't even own yet.
Fair play to Sony. Yeah. I didn't kick off as much. In fact, this is the only time when I had an account automatically renew itself and take money that I didn't want to spend, and I didn't get pissed off about it, because I do like Plus a lot. And I didn't and I'm one to kick off about all sorts of things, but I didn't kick off about them withholding online, because Plus was still a great deal. But at the same time, they still did have to inevitably withhold. They had to inevitably take something that we once enjoyed and gate it.
Fair play to them, they were actually honest about it. When they were asked about it, they said, online's really expensive, we kind of have to charge for it now. Like, oh, all right. But you didn't bullshit us about it being, oh, wow, this service is a benefit to you. It's like, well, PlayStation Plus is, but, you're being honest that you're taking away something and you have to charge for something you previously gave us for free. Fair play, you said that. Okay.
Even with a deal that good, they still had to take something away. They still had to employ ransom techniques. And my big worry with EA Access is and let's face it, other companies are going to fucking do this. Once other companies start doing it, then we just start seeing things withheld.
An arms race of taking more and more away instead of adding value.
And I just worry that we're going to see games get carved up even more.
I can see that.
That's why I
really
feel
carved up.
I kind of feel like it's only ever really going to be of interest to the sort of people who just play FIFA and Madden but want a taste of other stuff on the side. Because, and there are a lot of people out there who I've met who literally, if you said to them, will you pay 15, 20 quid a year so you can play FIFA 5 days early when it comes out? They will fucking fall over themselves backwards just to play FIFA 5 days early. And the rest of it will just be icing on the cake. They'll just be like, I get to play new FIFA 5 days earlier than my mates do. Fucking yeah. How much do you want? I'll give you money now. Because there are some people who are fanatical about it.
From a philosophical standpoint as well, you could even argue that stuff like PlayStation Plus, games for gold, or whatever it is that Xbox now does, because they had to do that because they looked really bad in comparison. They still look really bad because the titles they release are shit compared to PlayStation Plus. But the cool thing about that is that it allows the more casual gamer like you talking, who maybe just plays, FIFA or whatever, to experience stuff that they wouldn't have gone out of their way to play otherwise, and that might broaden their horizons a bit.
Yeah,
they
might
you get stuff like
Rainbow
Rainbow Moon, which is a tactical battle RPG that popped up on PlayStation 3. That's part of PlayStation Plus. You get people that are otherwise just playing Battlefield giving this thing a try because it's for free. Cool. They'd have never tried that genre before that.
I'd say my biggest thing that I think is a bit crap about these publisher-led things is the lack of breadth. And I think what I love about PlayStation Plus is because of that, because you can just say to any old John, like, hey, mate, do you want to play this game? It's called Strider or something. It's quite, basically you're just being like, have a go. It's free.
Thomas was alone, was on there. And apparently Biffle made no money from that because, you don't get paid for being on PlayStation Plus, but it raised his profile and made these people were not going to buy his game in the first place. Let's be honest. They're not going to buy a game about blocks. That's not going to happen, but more people played it because it was on PlayStation Plus, and that's good for his next game, And
the thing is, within publishers make everything, and this is why some people hate EA games. I'm actually when they're good, I'm quite fond of the way they do them, but I wouldn't just play EA games, because the thing is, as with any publisher, publisher games tend to have They have very similar styles, and Ubisoft are exactly the same. If you play any Ubisoft game, you'll notice the way they always have it. So the Y button on the triangle is something to do with the head looking, and then the arms, and they have this sort of very almost spiritual linking the buttons to different parts of the body. It's there are different philosophies, and I think if you only subscribe to one of them, can you imagine having a thing where it's oh yeah, I subscribe to get just Michael Mann and J.J. Abrams films, you just have a subscription, so all you watch is J.J. Abrams films.
That
it'd be fucking boring. And that's why I like PS Plus, is because you actually do get a bit of a chocolate box variety, and sometimes the games aren't that good, sometimes they're really good, but they actually seem to mix it up and give you a bit more variety. And I think in terms of And I really think that this is the way forward in a way. Maybe not publisher-led shops, but different curated shops. Because obviously Steam now has just become a fucking thrift store in a way of like having to chuck through shit to try and find the jumper that fits you or isn't just horrible. I think curated stores and curated offers are a way forward, but I don't think publisher-led ones are because they're boring.
No, I mean, it's what Valve said years ago that's what the way they wanted to go, which would have been fine, but they didn't. And they now are currently in this. It's like, we need that stuff a year ago. Like, you need me to go and create a store of shit that doesn't suck and put it on there, and then, we'll have less of the problem with the front page. But that hasn't happened yet, so that's a problem. And you're right. I mean, individual publisher accounts, particularly like Ubisoft, like the joke about, hey, let's review Ubisoft the game. Where there's, oh, look, they do the same thing in everything. Yeah, that shit will get boring pretty damn fast. Although the problem you then have to have sort of like a Netflix for games is that most publishers just don't want to do it. It's not that they don't exist. There's actually a UK service that when I was at uni, I was broke. I used a service called Metaboli, which was £8 a month. And you had to like go through that kind of DRM client to do it. But you got some pretty good games on that. Yeah, and you got access to all of them, and I was playing stuff like Prince of Persia: Sands of Time on that thing. And right now, their library's not amazing, but they've still got stuff like Lego Batman, they've got Batman Arkham City, they've got a Guilty Gear game on there, they've got some pretty good indie games like Sang Froid. They also have some pretty shitty indie games like Uprising 44 and Chaos Domain, but, it's still a pretty reasonable value proposition to people that just can't, they want to play quite a few games, but they just can't afford it. Although I have to wonder if it's even relevant anymore in the world of free-to-play. Like, it used to be that you didn't get games for free unless you nicked them. Now you can be absolutely broke and play a lot of games, and you'll be fine. So I do even wonder if it's relevant.
One issue there we have is just, you're right, publishers in control of this stuff is just bad news. People love to say, once we get into an all-digital market, games will become cheaper and easier to get. And it's like, you do realize who we're trusting with this. It's basically like walking with your eyes closed and your jugular out towards Dracula and thinking, I'll be all right in the morning. Like, it doesn't work that way. And I think looking at the aforementioned PlayStation Now is a fine example of it. There's a market that a publisher is dictating themselves. And, it looks like a really good fucking deal, doesn't it? Never mind the fact that you're getting a limited amount of play for a ridiculous amount of money. And you can buy the games outright cheaper.
So I tried the bloody thing. I tried it out. This is I've also tried OnLive, and I have a lot of the kind of streaming devices in my home. Like, I've got the Nvidia Shield and stuff like that, which lets you stream from your computer. Obviously, I've got a laptop. I could do the Steam streaming thing. PlayStation Now, for me, bearing in mind I got the best connection I can get here. I've got a business line 50 down, which I don't have problems streaming anything. Like Netflix, Amazon, it's a business line. It doesn't get package shaped as far as I can tell. Things run really, really good. And I tested my connection. I've got a really good router as well. It's actually one of the recommended routers for Nvidia Shield, the stuff that they tested it all on. It's like really good 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, everything fine. I do the connection test. It's like, you're perfect. You're good to go. So, all right, well, let's test this thing out. And let's put it through its paces by trying out a fighting game. We'll try one that has kind of legendary good art. It's 2D, BlazBlue. Let's go for BlazBlue Continuum Shift. The fucker took 2 minutes to load. 2 minutes, yeah. And it had to try 3 times, by the way. The first 2 times it was just black screen. Nothing fucking happened. So I tried loading it twice. And I paid, I think it's $3 or $4 for 4 hours of this. And the time is burning away already because of the black screen. The thing loads up. And it's the most pixely, artifacted shit. The input lag is disgusting. It's completely unplayable. And it's like, okay, I understand. I get it. It's a fighting game. It's, you're pretty much putting it through its paces in the worst possible way, because you can't have input lag in a fighting game. But even if it was just the input lag, that would be bad. But it just looks ugly. You are literally paying money for a worse version of the game.
It's just dumb. What's the point?
The service itself is not a patch on what they promised, because, apparently it's just PS3 games now, when it was going to be PS2 and PS1, and it's rumored that Sony sort of realized that it's just cheaper to sell them as downloads rather than host them for streaming.
Yeah.
And so what about the price model? I mean, it's weird. It's all over the place. I can pay $3 to play Alone in the Dark Inferno for 3 months. You would have to pay me thousands of dollars to get me to play Alone in the Dark Inferno for 3 months. But BlazBlue is $5 for 4 hours.
It doesn't make sense, because the thing is, like, the problem with all this whole thing is you have to boil it down to why does this exist? And the reason it exists is really simple, is people are, within the business world, people are still very fond of the rental model, because the rental model was so profitable, because you can have a single product that you weren't selling to people, that you were repeatedly loaning to people.
And they do this in free-to-play games now.
Yeah. I mean, they've run
items.
Hey, I mean, I've come out in the defense of it in certain scenarios. When they first brought out Blacklight Retribution, because the rental prices were reasonable, it let you test out loadouts. It's like, so basically I play one game and I can rent a kind of pre-made weapon for a day that's competitive with some of the best weapons in the game. Like, it's like, I get this thing, I can't remember the name of it. It was this assault rifle that has, like, a good sight on it, and it had, like, Inferno rounds that would, like, do burning damage. And it took, like, one game to rent this with in-game currency for a day. It was like, this is totally reasonable. I don't have to spend money for this. I don't play every day, so I play a game, I rent the gun I want for the day, play a few rounds, and I'm done. But the problem is that a lot of those models go way, way too fucking far.
Yeah.
And
if they sniff an inch, they will take that mile.
Take a mile,
We're supposed
absolutely.
to trust these people. We're supposed to trust a digital future where publishers control their own market with no consequence, with no way of us getting elsewhere. Like, we've seen what they do with the small amount of liberty they have right now. How are we supposed to trust them when they have all of the power?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of works for movie rentals at the moment, because Redbox exists, Amazon exists, and a bunch of others. I still actually rent plenty of movies through Amazon. I think $4 to watch in HD, and the HD streaming quality is good. It is. Yeah. I mean, it blows the shit out of PlayStation now.
That's the thing is, streaming video is so much easier.
Yeah, of course.
And they've got really good at doing that.
Yeah.
But it's like streaming games. It's like, it doesn't make any sense, because you think about it, it's like, in what way has the internet got vastly better over the past 3 or 4 years? The speed of connections. Speed of connections is so much better.
Unless you're in the US.
Well, yeah, but still, like, largely, if you want to pay for a very fast connection, you can get a very fast connection now. Fucking well fast compared to what it was like 5-10 years ago.
That's true.
Are they consistently, though, stable? Are they still, like, super stable? So, no. Like, there haven't really been any vast leaps in stability of connection. And with video, right, I like to call it, like, when you go on Netflix, I call it the red worm of disappointment, right? When it's like, just being like, there he is, the little fucker. Like, and the worst case scenario is, my film's a bit screwed. It might ruin a good point, and you have to go and press some buttons, maybe restart the router, get a bit angry. But it's like, Netflix and all those things are super clever in the fact if the connection goes a bit wonky, it's just like, well, let's just make it look a bit of shit for, like, let's just turn the resolution down for about a couple of minutes. As soon as you're fine again, we'll turn it back up. You can't do that with games. It's like, if at any point it's like the connection is slightly wonky,
you're boned.
You're boned. Like,
you just die in a boss fight because you lagged. Like,
the games so obsessively sell themselves on graphics now that offering a service that makes them all look like fuck knuckles is just not going to be a fucking good idea.
Right when they announced it, it's like, what? Like,
this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
Well, if you try it on live,
for 4 hours of the worst BlazBlue experience you could ever hope to have.
Yeah, that's money I'll never get back. It's like BlazBlue is unplayable. It's as simple as that. I'm like, right, well, you can't manage a 2D fighting game. How are you going to manage an advanced 3D game where I'm actually concerned about the graphics in some way? You're not going to be able to, are you? It's going to look terrible.
When you add in, if it's a publisher controlling this stuff and it's not a third party, you add in the extra concerns of, we've got to keep GameStop happy. We can't upset them. No. We can't undercut their prices.
Let them
we've got to keep
die.
I actually think we've got a few more years. I'm actually really excited to see what happens with the next 3 or 4 years, because I honestly think that, much like we were talking earlier with Battlestar Galactica or something, I honestly think that a lot of publishers are playing a long game with retailers, and they're going to
airlock GameStop. That's how it's going to be. They're just waiting for that opportunity.
Yeah, I honestly think that the big problem they have with this current console generation, because consoles, people still might turn their nose up, but consoles are still hugely relevant.
Yeah,
I honestly think the big problem is the fact that you cannot download a console, and they needed not just to shift boxes, they need the displays and the windows, they need the full push of these companies.
Yeah, they do.
Because window spaces, even if people don't buy stuff in shops, window displays are still a major thing.
Space is important.
And so I honestly think they're leading them on, and then it's like once they get to a point where they're like, we're okay, they're just going to be like, sorry guys, fuck you, we'll work out the rest later. Like,
they're basically playing the Starscream gambit in all of this. I've done this before. I've compared them to Starscream because they spend their whole time sucking up to GameStop and doing what GameStop tells them while telling us used games are evil and that they can't wait to become, digital distributors themselves, but they've still got to constantly suck up and play ball by GameStop's rules. And the second GameStop were to announce bankruptcy or something, it would be GameStop has fallen! Yeah! And they'll just turn into a jet and fly away.
Yeah, because retail have burned all of their bridges. Like, fucking publishers hate retail. The amount of off-the-record conversations I've had with publishers, like, they fucking despise them because they have literally, like, the general thing has just been like publishers going, but you can't do this to us. And retailers turning around and going, yes, we can.
Well, it's kind of like the relationship between a lot of journalists, press, reviewers, previewers, and publishers. At the end of the day, it's like, you can't do this to us. Yes, we can, because we are holding all the cards.
But
You
I
got
honestly
nothing.
think, having worked in a bunch of different parts of the industry over the years, I honestly think that retail are the worst. Not people who work in retail stores. Obviously, I should clarify that. You know,
I don't know.
they're
I've
just
worked in a retail store for years. I'm pretty sure they
Precisely,
are.
I've worked in retail stores. But the people actually, the business side of those things, honestly, there are always points where it's like, it feels like publishers are fucking us over and all this stuff. But generally speaking, the people who work in these things, like, there is a strange camaraderie of feeling like we are all part of a games industry. And there are genuinely bad eggs, obviously, and there are genuinely bad decisions, but there is still that camaraderie. But it always feels like traditional retail have always been outside of it. They were always the people who just literally like, we don't give a shit about this industry. We are just rinsing the fuck out of this because there's money here. Like, there's not even a semblance of pretending that they care.
When I see retail and publishers at odds, like, I just see Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer with their hands around each other's throats. Like, it's, and really, if publishers do defeat retail, I mean, it would be nice for a few minutes until the publishers then turn around and really, like, just start. They really turn the blades on us, because I think they've dreamed of this moment where they can depose the overlords and then sit on the throne and just laugh.
This is some dark wingman shit, right? Where you've just been saved from this creep. Oh, thank you so much. Mm-hmm. No worries. Why don't we go back and talk about this at my place? Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, I see.
And, well, I mean, you know, and it is already happening. There's a lot of control when it comes to consoles about who sells games, and eventually they will want to sell all through digital, and all through the PlayStation Store, and all through Xbox Live. You know, if you want to avoid that, well, there's something called a PC, although even then, you've still got Valve who, you know, I don't know if Valve aggressively goes after companies with their Steamworks model. I doubt they even have to at this point, because, and this is consumers' faults, because they have actually said, you know, so many people say, oh, if it's not on Steam, I'm not buying it. It's like, you are handing power on a silver platter to a company that for the last year has been happy to rake in the money from unfinished shit. They still haven't taken Stomping Land off the store. That game has been no contact with the devs for months. Like, they took the money and they ran. It's still available on the store. They brought the War Z back, for God's sake.
Valve's response to companies taking money and running and not updating shit was to just say things like, well, early access titles have no guarantee that they'll ever be finished. That's us covered. Now let's keep letting people buy the shit.
Yeah, it's like, well, you know, this car has no guarantee that the wheels will actually stay on. You know, we're not responsible for that.
It's why I always try and sort of pimp alternatives where I can. Why I like to mention GOG a lot, because they at least have a commitment to some quality assurance. It's at the very least, it's like, if the game is more than 5 years old, don't get it on Steam, because there's no guarantee that it'll ever run.
Well, there's no
on
point,
GOG,
you know.
there's a guarantee, or at the very least, there's a guarantee of some updates, some support there.
Just better.
I don't feel safe.
I'm happy taking their money. You know, it's why I agree to sponsorship with my esports team for them. Like, if I want to take money from people, I'd rather take money from someone that I know is good and that I've supported since 2008.
I feel safe buying anything from GOG.
Yeah, you should, because there's good policies backing it up. You know.
At times it does feel like that, like, you know, the PC gaming has been a Wild West for a long time, and it's become more of a Wild West recently. But it's like, as we know from any industry and anything ever, whenever there's money, the Wild West eventually sort of starts to get changed. It starts to get right, like, you know, things get neatened up. And I do wonder what's going to happen with the PC games market in terms of all sorts of things over the next few years, because it does feel like, you know, with the more people involved with it, it's going to have it will become more regulated and more controlled. And I do wonder, like, especially when traditional retail does die and download becomes the thing, I do wonder if the prices are just going to get shit again, and we're not going to live in a world where you can get The Witcher 2 for £3 and Sleeping Dogs for £3.50.
Well, I mean, they no longer have competition. That's the fear. Like, when publishers no longer have anybody to fear, are we really going to trust them to turn around and become?
Yeah, no, it's true.
Why?
They're not our
you?
friends.
Why would you?
I am your friend. That's the message. You put your faith in me now.
That seems like a good time to wrap the show, actually, because we've done 3 hours of this. We could depress you for 3 more quite easily, but I think we'll definitely wrap up now.
I try to be positive. I do.
I tried that for a while. It didn't suit.
It's overrated.
It's
It's a lot of work.
enthusiasm costs lives. Tell you that for a fact. All right. Well, as usual, now we'll try and shill to you and sell you our stuff. So, Matt Lees, please do, by all means, sell yourself and tell people where to go.
Well, I've got a YouTube channel, which you can probably find by clicking on stuff. I don't make stuff hugely frequently because I do work on a different pace to most YouTube stuff. I try and make more in-depth things that take longer.
Basically,
it might be
lazy.
worth... I'm hugely lazy. But I also work with Shut Up and Sit Down, who talks about if you're interested in board games and physical games, do check out that site. I work with it it's part-time, but honestly, they are fucking brilliant, funny people. You should definitely check it out. And also, if you do like just listening to me talking about games, I do my own games podcast called Daft Souls, which you can find on iTunes and all these things. But it's also on my YouTube channel. Just have a poke at that, and you might like it.
All right, fantastic. Mr. Jim Sterling, for the few who are not yet enlightened, please do spread your glory.
I didn't realise you knew that I called it my glory. I really should put some blocks on that FetLife account. You can catch my video game reviews at The Escapist, escapistmagazine.com, and that is also where I host my premiere web show, The Jimquisition. That's good. This Monday we did one called Batman Is Everything Wrong with Square Enix, where quite fitting for some of the discussion we've had. So that's all good. That's at escapistmagazine.com. I have an ever-growing YouTube channel, which is still quite young, but doing very well. That's Jim Sterling, just all one word, /Jim Sterling. That's good. I also recently did a new podcast called Fist Shark Marketing.
I listened to the first episode of that. That was interesting, to say the least.
Yes, it is. It's a little different from podcasts that you might be used to. It's very conceptual.
Role-playing is what it is.
Kind of comedy radio, role-play, LARPing. But yeah, it's a fictional PR company that myself, Conrad Zimmerman, and Caitlin Cook are part of. And then, yeah, you can get that at fistshark.com.
You own a domain called fishtshark.com. It's just...
Yeah.
Somebody has to, and I'm glad it's that man.
Yeah. Such power should only be in the hands of a chosen few.
Only those with the skills to wield it, sir.
You've got to have gloves. It's not safe.
Handle with care. Don't wiggle those things at me. That's disturbing. And yeah, my stuff is over on youtube.com/cynicalbrit as always. I'm sort of trying to get things back in gear. Production over the last couple of months has been slow, for obvious reasons. Next couple of months, I do have time off of horrible stuff. So outside of a couple of doctor's appointments, I should be producing regularly. And then I've got surgery in 8 weeks. Probably I have to do another round of fucking chemo or whatever, which will most likely slow me down again. But it's only going to be for a few more months, and then hopefully all this shit will be sorted out, and I will continue to pester you for a very long time. Regardless, if you do want to check out my t-shirts, we do have a new shirt out. It's called Join the Glorious 60 FPS Revolution. You can find it over on bit.ly. That's bit.ly/TB merch if you wish to buy that. We also have a super exclusive gold just garish foil thing that you can buy, which a lot of people apparently did like. We also have discovered that our sales, only 3% of them are women's fit, so I think we know where our demographic lies. But regardless, please do feel free to go check them out. They're pretty good. And videos coming this week. There will be some. I'm just trying to think of what at the moment. There's really not that much interesting stuff on Steam for me to look at, frankly. I've been looking, and I've been trying a few things. There isn't. Oh, Road Not Taken just came out. I should probably look at that. I do have that. So yeah, that is a nice little... it's a roguelike puzzle game with a really nice art style that I tried out, I think, a couple of years ago at PAX. So I'll have a look at that probably, and a couple of other things. The new wing of Hearthstone, of course, is out today, so I'll be playing that. And I'm currently streaming quite a bit of Dota 2 ridiculously late at night while taking painkillers. and it seems to be working very well for the whole Zen thing. So feel free to check that out. If you subscribe, you can already check out all the archives. There's literally hours of shouting at Dota.
Dude, you're not playing Dota 2. Like, you think you are, but
I think I'm playing Dota 2, yeah.
it's great to watch, but I mean, like, really, you're not even anywhere near a computer.
No one actually told me any of this. They've just been enjoying it for weeks. Like, they're seeing how long they could string me along.
Marana!
I'm actually just flying the little Star Wars things around. It's like, Luna's blessing! Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'll have a look at Freedom Planet. A lot of people are shouting at me about Freedom Planet. Actually, I've played the first few levels of that. Best fucking Sonic game that's been out since Sonic 3. It's really, really good. But the level design has made me confused, and now I'm lost in one of the levels with puzzles in it. So, I don't know. If I get past that level, I'll try and do a video on it. So hopefully you will enjoy that. But again, thanks very much for your support. The new shirt is selling stupidly well. And we just bought a house, so we kind of need every penny we can get. So thank you very much for your support. I definitely appreciate that. That doesn't mean you can visit, but regardless, we like you anyway. Thank you very much for watching, folks. Please do follow us on Twitter. You can find me at Totalbiscuit, or if you would prefer less of the rantings and ravings and just things like video announcements and things, you can go to twitter.com/cynicalbrit. Jim Sterling is, of course, Jim Sterling on Twitter, and Matt Lee's I always mess up the formatting of, so...
Yeah, it's jam_sponge, because sadly, if you forget the underscore, it's horrendous, which now means people are going to look at it, but don't. Just don't.
Yeah. I don't even
now
know.
I've got to look it up.
Oh, it's a company that if I'm ever rich for any reason, I'm just going to buy it and shut it. Because I can't do anything about it, but it exists, and... Yeah.
Oh,
jam_sponge.
Yep, jam.
Oh!
You've been watching the Co-optional Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.